Good morning, it's been a minute. So I wanted to do some kind of big video, I guess, and this is the idea I ended up having since we did hit 2,000 subscribers somewhat recently, so thank you for that, by the way, especially if you're new. I appreciate that. So I wanted to do something that would kind of appeal to a broad demographic in the sense that I want to talk in a way that really speaks to both new players and more experienced ones, and with the idea that I came up for today, I think I can satisfy sort of both ends of that. If you're newer, I have stuff for you. If you're experienced and you know this game really well, and you've been playing it for too long like me, don't worry, there's stuff in here for you too. Because today we're going to talk about every weapon in the game. And the question becomes, okay Keen, how are you going to do that and how are you going to approach that? Is it a tier list? No, not quite. I'm actually going to take sort of an idea I've seen people do in regards to mostly fighting games. I have this little chart in front of us, and I have it set up such that one side says easier to win, one side says harder to win. The vertical part says easy to learn, and then downwards, the opposite is that it's harder to learn. What I'm going to try and do in this video is take every currently existing kit as of chill season 2023, and I'm gonna roughly categorize where I think the weapon goes in terms of on a base level, particularly this kit, not this kit, getting ahead of myself. This video is a bit more geared, the way I'm gonna structure this is a little bit more geared toward if you're new at the game and you're simply trying to figure out what weapons might be good or bad for you to start off with. This is sort of for you in that sense. But I will be talking about every weapon, a decent bit at least. Not, the most in-depth thing ever. I'm not going to talk 10 minutes about a single weapon kit because, frankly, there's too many to do that realistically. I'd be here all day. I'd love to talk about it all day, but I think I can only talk so much about each kit, right? Fair enough. So, this is how it looks, blank, right? This is what it's going to look like at the end. Spoilers, it will look like this, but we're going to break it down. We're not going to go too crazy. You might be looking at that and be overwhelmed, being like, oh god, that's too many weapons. Don't worry, we'll go one by one. I have all of our layers. It's all pretty and nice. It took me an hour and a half or so to make this. And yeah, we're going to talk about every weapon, and I'm mainly going to focus on this is, again, the placements are mainly if you're newer to the game and you're trying to figure out what weapons are good to start with. This is kind of the video for that, or if you just want to hear someone talk about every weapon kit in the game, this is also for you. Because I know a lot about this game. So, we'll be here. Obviously, it's opinionated. You might find one weapon a lot easier and think, oh no, that goes top left, because I win with it all the time and it's easy. That's fine. This is just for fun. You don't have to go crazy. It's not a tier list by any means. Just because a weapon is top left doesn't mean, you'll win every game with it, or if a weapon's bottom right doesn't mean you'll lose every game with it, or that's impossible to win with. Generally speaking, things on the top left, not all of it, but most of them will be like decent weapons, go figure. And stuff bottom right may not be the strongest, as we'll see in some cases, but that's fine. Again, this is just mostly a discussion video. I just want to talk about all the weapons because I think that'd be fun. Fair enough. Alright. So, first weapon I'm going to talk about. 52. I wish I could zoom this. I guess I could do this in editing in terms of, oh geez, what's that? Not the magnifier, we're not doing that. I wish I could zoom in a little bit more, but not, so much. I guess I could do this really, because we're going to have to break down everything, so eventually, this is a pretty small image, so editing all this, these icons are pretty small, as you can see when I zoom in. It's kind of pixelated, so that's fine. 52 Gal. There is no deco yet, so this is just the wall plus Gal. It's a basic shooter. It 2 shots. It's decently accurate, not perfectly accurate or anywhere near 2. Its downside is that it's not the most accurate thing, but it does have one of the fastest kill times in the game, assuming you're hitting both bullets, so that's good. Kit is okay, not amazing, but by design this weapon has always succeeded. Especially in a solo queue environment, this weapon's very, very strong. Melon, the #1 Japanese player in solo queue as of the time of recording this, hit, I think it was 4,300 XP with this weapon, if you want, an idea of how good this weapon is in a solo environment. I also have it here. I think it's easier to win with this kind of weapon. I think it's fairly easy to learn. It's a basic shooter. There's no crazy gimmick or mechanic or anything. Obviously, as with most shooters, if you jump, you have jump RNG, which means your accuracy is less, but you know, you can't really go wrong with a rounded weapon like shooter class, and it has a top tier kill time. It paints pretty well, it's pretty ink efficient. You really can't complain about much with this weapon outside of, you know, it doesn't have any bomb array to truly flush people or hit people behind walls or geometry without resorting to using it special. But for the most part, like, most weapons struggle to sort of challenge this if they don't outrange you, and even if they do challenge you, if you're within their range, you can probably kill them first or trade. So yeah, it's a really strong weapon. Yeah, great pick if you're new, honestly. As opposed to that, I make that sound like it's bad. That doesn't necessarily mean it's bad, but sorry, 52 is just a very high bar to start at. We're going to talk about Vanilla 96, which has Sprinkler plus Inkvac. You know, in terms of main weapon, I still think it's fairly easy to learn. Not quite as easy because its fire rate is a little bit slower. Its range is higher, its accuracy is less, its ink efficiency is also less. Yeah, you have more range. It's still 2 shots. It has a higher damage value on the bullet, which is kind of cool. Its strafe speed is pretty bad. You know, relative to other shooters, it's pretty low on the strafe speed. So you're gonna have to get pretty comfortable with just shooting and moving. Like, shooting a little bit, like, you can't just stand still with this weapon and like walk sideways. This is not one of those weapons, for sure. And its kit is really not too strong. Sprinkler, you know, helps you paint, which is nice if you have a special that has pretty good usage, sure. But Inkvac is kind of the sort of special I consider like niche. It's really good in the moments that it's good, but, you know, outputting like 9 a game isn't really going to do anything crazy for you. So, you know, on a base level, I think this weapon's pretty easy to learn, but I would say it's a bit harder to win because Vac is a kind of special. It needs good timing, it needs some sort of coordination. That's another thing I wanted to talk about. This list is from the perspective, it's not in any particular mode or anything like that. It's just generally speaking, if you are playing by yourself going into series or X rank or whatever, you know, it's just roughly how well I think you'll do with it. So, you know, this weapon, it's not bad per se. It's not too difficult, no, but I don't think it's a great solo queue weapon, which is why I kind of have it closer to the harder to win category. Now, as opposed to that, 96 Deco has Splashball and Krak-On for its kit. And Krak-On is definitely an X Factor kind of special, especially in solo queue, that can really make the game a lot easier for you. I'm looking at this in terms of like placements. I think it's a little bit more difficult to learn because you have to sort of understand. You have to be pretty comfortable with Krak-On and Splashball to really get true value out of this kit. But the thing about this, as opposed to Vanilla 96, is Krak-On's a legitimate win con in some modes. You know, be it Rainmaker, Clown Blitz, PC. Not really so much in zones, but, you know, for those 3 modes, I think it has very, you know, I'm not going to use the word consistent. I'm going to use it, just having a win factor on your weapon, you know, elevates so much, you know, further to the left here. It's easier to win when you have a genuine win factor as opposed to, oh man, I hope my team does X. Like, it's a lot easier and a better solo queue weapon if you have those sort of win factors. My voice is already dying. This is great. But I definitely think this is a stronger weapon. That's like without question. I think at like any level of gameplay, if you ask people, that's going to be the answer you get. Again, same main weapon. In this case, I'm not going to talk about every, you know, I'm not going to talk about like X weapon, then X weapon second kit. It's not totally alphabetical. Some of it is, not all of it. You know, generally it's alphabetical. Again, I forgot to mention this earlier. In the description and in like the timestamps in the video, I'll have it, you know, each weapon there to make it easier for you if you're like, oh, Keen, stop talking, I want to hear you talk about Paintbrush. Like, okay, like, go find the timestamp. I talk about Paintbrush whenever that is. I'm doing it to make it, you know, more convenient. You know, if you're watching this video in bits or throwing it on your second mod or falling asleep to it or whatever. It's a long form video. There's a lot to talk about. We'll get to it. So, you know, it's fine. It's chill. It's cool. But yeah, 96 Deco, pretty strong, honestly. I would think it's, you know, maybe not the most beginner-friendly thing, but it's definitely strong, for sure. Silver Aerospray, on a base level. Aerospray is incredibly popular amongst newer players, and it's not really hard to see why. Not particularly difficult. It's a shooter. It's a lightweight shooter. It's incredibly ink efficient. It paints a lot. In the case of Silver Aerospray, you have Fizzy Bomb, one of the strongest subs in the game, and you have Reef Slider, which, you know, may be more of a zones catered thing, but for the most part, but in spite of that, you know, it can combo with Fizzy Bomb. You know, this weapon can easily output 2,000 paint a game sort of thing. So, you know, if you just enjoy, you know, painting, I think this weapon's like really beginner friendly. And especially when you're new, I think you'll probably see success with it for sure. Obviously, the weakness is Aerospray's range and accuracy is really bad, and it's a 5-shot, meaning it's a very slow kill time weapon. If you don't have all those bullets connect like well, and trust me, they won't at like mid-range unless you're supremely lucky. So you're gonna get stuffed out by better main weapons like Splash-O-Matic and 52 gal and all that fun stuff. But yeah, I think it's really beginner friendly. It's pretty great if you're new. I can understand why it's appealing. Gold Aerospray has Sprinkler Booyah. I think it's a bit harder to win with because outputting a lot of Booyahs doesn't necessarily equate to a success, because when it comes to a main weapon as flawed as this, having a sub that you can throw that actually pressures areas is really important. So trading your Fizzy Bomb away for a Sprinkler, which helps you paint on one of the best painters in the game, is a little bit redundant in my opinion. So, you know, it's still easy to learn, but I would definitely say, you know, overall I think Silver's more rounded in a way that you'll probably have more success with initially. Next weapon is Anarchy Nova. Again, it's alphabetical. You would think I would talk about regular Nova first, but that's not for a while. Splattershot Nova is a shooter. It is a 5-shot shooter in terms of kill, so its kill time is quite slow. Its strafe is good, its paint is good, its range is okay. It's not incredible, but it's not bad. When it comes to Anarchy Nova, I think the best way to describe this weapon is your kit is really good because you have Inkmine to help you combo and like lay traps to make the 5-shot kill not as bad, so that's good. And the main thing is because the weapon paints well, you're basically going to farm a lot of your special, which in this case is Jetpack, which is, you know, a pretty decently valuable special that you can get a lot of value out of. When you play Nova, your win con is basically, you know, paint a lot, get a lot of Jetpack, get value from the Jetpack, sort of repeat. And, you know, that's sort of how the gameplay goes. So, you know, if you really like Jetpack, this weapon's pretty good for you. In terms of how hard the weapon is to play, I think it's fairly easy to learn on a base level. I think the main frustration is, again, your kill time is quite bad, so if you're forcing yourself to take these fights or getting caught in these fights against, you know, weapons that have faster kill times than you, i.e. like pretty much every other shooter that isn't like Aerospray, yeah, you need to space yourself really well, otherwise you're gonna get bullied really hard. Like if you're playing Nova and you're fighting something like Squeezer or like 96, like it's not a good time. So that's really the struggle. But, you know, if you're willing to, I don't want to say run away. If you're willing to play your kit to its strengths, and you like sort of how basic the shooter is and how well it paints and all that, I think this weapon's a good pick for you. That's pretty nice. Ballpoint, we're gonna move to the bottom here. Speaking of Jetpack, it's funny I talk about this, and now I'm talking about this. Ballpoint, in terms of main weapon, I think is one of the harder weapons to learn in the game, as we like went all the way, because, you know, all these are shooters. Shooters are generally easier to learn. This is a Splatling, and one with 2 modes at that, so this is a pretty difficult, kind of complicated weapon if you're new. Like, there's a lot of nuance to it that it's, you know, even if I try and explain it to you beyond the base level, that would take quite a lot of time. So the way that Ballpoint works, if you don't know, it has 2 modes of fire, which is short range and long range. Short range has a faster fire rate, so better, you know, like kill time. Really high paint output, but it's short range. And its damage is a little bit less than long range, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not 100% sure on that. I'm pretty sure, but, you know, the damage versus the fire rate is a big difference. So, like, technically, you have higher damage on long range, but the fire rate is lower. So it's kind of weird like that. But basically, this weapon paints a lot in short range, but it also has the ability to go long range. So the way that that happens is when you charge up your Splatling, as all Splatlings do, you need to fire a certain duration to transition to the long range mode. And once you're in long range mode, you know, with good timing, you can recharge with Ballpoint and move and like keep your long range. But if you charge too long, it'll revert you back to short range. And every time you bob into the ink, like you go down and you stop standing, you'll revert to short range automatically. So there's a lot of mechanical learning to do with this weapon. But you'll notice I put it a bit, you know, like higher on the easier to win thing. You know, it's a difficult weapon, sure, but, you know, once you get past that execution barrier, I think this weapon's fantastic because it offers so much. Its kit is Fizzy Bomb and Inkjet. And, you know, similar to Nova, Inkjet is really high value for you. If Fizzy Bomb combos with Inkjet, it can flush areas. You can kind of play this weapon in such a way that you sort of not spam short range, because you shouldn't only short range just to farm Jetpack, because there is value to the long range in terms of actually hitting people. This weapon can do a lot. It's just a big juggling act of knowing when to do what. So, you know, you have a great kit, you have amazing short range paint, you have great short range, you know, fighting capabilities, you have the ability to crossfire long range. There is that massive execution barrier, but this weapon is honestly fantastic. If you're willing to put in the time, I think it's very, very worth it. So, you know, I'm pretty high on that one. Ballpoint Nouveau, however, I think it's a little easier to learn because, you know, it has ink mine and ink back. So you don't have to, you know, have these like crazy jetpack shots of optimization, because jetpack can be really strong, but sometimes, you know, you need those like perfect inkjet shots or whatever. Like this is back, it's a bit more forgiving in that sense. The kit's okay. I definitely don't think it's a solo queue friendly because, you know, its kit is not as nearly as good at killing. And you don't need a kill to be a good weapon, obviously. But again, we're talking about a solo queue environment where you need to be a bit more self-sufficient, I think is the best way to describe it. So it's definitely harder to win with this weapon. I think it's okay. It's not bad. It's definitely niche, and you're probably better off investing a little more time into this one. But, you know, if you learn how to play normal pen and you learn what map modes, you know, you like ink back on, then this is a perfectly, like, fine thing to pick. It's just, if you're going to learn the weapon, I think you start with this one, and then this is, like, part 2, I guess, of just, like, side grade, you know? Still good, though. And now we're going to talk about Bamboo. This one's a bit hard to talk about. I kind of have it in the middle because I don't think it's easy. I don't think it's like the hardest thing ever. It's kind of point-and-click adventure, I think is how most people would describe it. It's a charger. It has decent range. It has a really short charge time. Except it doesn't kill in one hit. It does 85 damage with a full charge. And, you know, it scales depending on how much you charge, you know, like other chargers. Autobomb Whale is okay. It's not some crazy overbearing kit, but, you know, it combos with the main weapon so you can kill with it. That's pretty cool. Yeah, I don't really have a ton to say about this thing. I think it's perfectly, like, okay. If you fight a good Bamboo, it's, like, very respectable, but when you play Bamboo, you definitely have that feeling of I need to hit my shots, because, you know, its paint is okay. It's not amazing. But, you know, you need to actually hit shots to get super value out of this weapon, so I kind of just have it in the middle. It's, like, it's perfectly fine. It's okay. It's not crazy. It's not, like, top tier. On a personal opinion, I hate fighting this weapon. Not because it's the strongest thing, but because that range is insane. Its charge time is incredible. It's like 20-something frames, if I'm not mistaken, to fully charge. It's really fast, and it's a lightweight weapon. It's like decently ink efficient. Yeah, it's pretty good. It's alright. Is it beginner friendly? I'd probably lean to probably not, which is why I have it a little bit lower. Like a little bit closer to the harder to learn, but you know, it's okay. It's fine. Big Swig, this is one of the weapons added in Splatoon 3. I think it's incredibly hard to win with this one because it has Splash Wall and Ink back. And the main weapon is kind of quirky because it's a roller, but it only one-shots with the vertical flick. And specifically when it comes to main weapon of Big Swig compared to other rollers, its vertical flick is smaller. So in terms of execution barrier with killing with the Big Swig as a main weapon, it's actually quite hard compared to some of the other rollers. The trade-off is, with Big Swig, your horizontals paint an obscene amount. You're incredibly ink efficient, especially when rolling on the floor, to the point where I think if you roll on the floor with this weapon, it's like 20 seconds or some nonsense before you run out of ink. So that's like, it's like selling point, quote unquote, I guess, from the developer's point of view, which is like, okay, like that's neat. It's a roller that rolls, sure. Are you actually going to do that? Probably not, no. I mean, if you're new, maybe that's fun for you, actually. In that case, go crazy with this, but I definitely recommend you play the other kit. Because, yeah, this kit is not great. Express is the alternate for Big Swig. I definitely think it's easier to win with this thing. It's still not an amazing main weapon, but Express actually leans a bit more into how well the weapon paints. Its special is Ink Storm, and its sub is Angle Shooter. Angle Shooter definitely has an execution barrier. It's a hard sub to use effectively, but, you know, you can combo with the main weapon. You can crossfire kind of crazy ranges if you get good with it. It's not the craziest kit in the world, but I definitely think it's a massive step up in terms of synergy and viability compared to normal Big Swig. So if you want to play this one, I would definitely recommend you play Express, for sure. Yeah, it's okay. It's not amazing. It's kind of just a for funsy weapon. It definitely feels goofy, which is fine. Not every weapon needs to be some crazy top tier build to win. That's okay. It's very silly. Big Swig is... I feel like when you play Big Swig, you're kind of just having fun. And I think that's important in weapons sometimes, so... You know, good fun weapon. What's our next? I didn't even... I feel like some typos. because I was trying to like edit this really fast. Like, what is G Blast? Because it sounds like Grim, but this is just normal blaster. Normal blaster. I have up here. It has auto bump as bubble. I think this weapon's pretty decent in solo queue. It's a blaster, so you know the appeal. AoE, area of effect. I feel like whenever I stream, say AoE a lot, and like I feel like if you're new, you're like, what is AoE? But you know, that's what I mean by that. And that means, you know, when you shoot the weapon, it shoots a shot. If you directed the shot, it one-shots in the case of blaster, and it explodes, and that explosive is sort of anything in that area gets damaged depending upon how close you are to it. The closer you are, the more damage you take. So this weapon's really good at, you know, just sitting around corners, under ledges in particular, and kind of just shooting at those angles that are difficult for you to kill with, especially, you know, say you're a charger and you're trying to sit somewhere and there's a guy under the ledge with blaster just poking at you. Yeah, that's what I mean by this weapon. It's poor at painting, it's not very ink efficient, but if you know your angles well, you know where to sit, where to shoot, that kind of deal, you're good with directing because it one-shots. This weapon's pretty threatening in solo queue, for sure. Definitely built for modes like TC, a given. If you're experienced, you know that. Yeah, I think it's okay. It's alright. It's not the most difficult thing to play, but it's not the easiest because, again, you come with those downsides. You're not good at painting, your frame rate is not crazy, all that stuff. So sometimes it feels like you get locked out with this weapon. It's a bit of a struggle, but you know, when you get the snowball going, you're in these positions that you really want to be. It can feel pretty strong. So, you know, if you're cool with sitting in advantage state, you're happy being under ledges, and you just think it's funny to like poke at angles that people can't hit you easily at, this weapon's pretty good. Yeah, it's a decent pick for a beginner. Blob. This weapon I have a complicated relationship with because I feel like this weapon kind of gives bad habits to some people in the sense of they sort of just like mash the trigger. I've definitely seen players, you know, just mash the trigger with this, and it's kind of a mindless weapon, I feel like, at like a base level. Because the way that it works is this is a slosher. It's the first slosher we talk about. It has no fall-off damage, and that means that when you shoot with Blob, it has 4 projectiles and they bounce. Each time it bounces, they get a little bit like smaller and the paint becomes like a little bit less. And it bounces off walls and stuff. Each of the projectiles does 30, so you need to hit all 4 to kill. But because there's no fall-off and the paint is like, it's kind of scattered, but it's decent paint. Not clean paint, but it paints a lot, mind you. It's kind of AFK in the sense of you're kind of like, oh, I want to paint this area, and then you get accidental kills sometimes, and I feel like that's like a trap in a way, because it's nice getting random kills, but I feel like some people rely on it a lot. Like, this is the kind of weapon I feel like is popular at lower level versus higher level, because at higher level this weapon's like, it's not great in CQC, its kill time is not amazing, it has like genuine issues, but it feels really, really obnoxious if you're new at the game because you don't really like know how to close the gap between you and that guy, especially when they're sitting at these super high angles that are like difficult to contest. Like, it's a really frustrating weapon to fight regardless of what level you're at, so it's kind of annoying to me. And like there's that theoretical ceiling of if you get really good at bouncing it off walls and this that, if you know your angles, you can get crazy kills, and like that's true, but at the same time you can kind of just mash it on some maps and get kills, so it's not the most difficult thing to learn as a base. If you're new, I think it's funny, it's really funny, but long term I don't think it'll develop the greatest habits for you as a player, because just the way it's designed to get the sort of random kills sometimes. This one has Sprinkler Rain, a pretty basic kit. It's about painting. That's what the weapon does. It's perfectly fine for that. There's no crazy like X factor to it. It's just, it paints a lot. Throws hitboxes a lot. Kind of annoying. Kind of the extent of Blob, I guess. As opposed to that Blob Deco, I think it's a bit harder to win with. Because, you know, with this one you're leaning into your heavy painting playstyle. This one is a bit more like aggressive, I guess I would say. A bit more interactive. It has Angle Shooter and Kraken. And it's like, oh, Kraken sounds crazy on this weapon that sort of sits in the back and just AFKs. And it's like, yeah, kinda, in theory. But Kraken's a kind of special that's like effective in close range. So it's kind of like this weird juggling act of like, yeah, you can sort of like paint with Blob in the back, but you know, you're gonna actually need to like kind of go in with Kraken. So the tempo's a bit weird compared to normal Bloblobber. And I don't think it has the best options if you go like really deep in with the weapon. at the end of your Kraken. Like, Heavy Deco has this problem too, where it's like, if you're a Kraken weapon and you overextend, it's really easy to just die. And Blob isn't really the greatest at close quarters combat, so it kind of has that issue to an extent as well. But you know, it's fine, it's a decent variant. It's alright. I definitely think Wreck Blob will probably get you more mileage, but you know, Blob Deco is just a very funny weapon. Best word I can use for it. Carbon is our second roller to talk about today. You'll notice. Wow, Keen, that's really close to the harder to win. What's the deal with that? Carbon has Autobomb Zipcaster, and if you're like the developers, you're probably like, oh, Zipcaster on a short range weapon sounds awesome. You just zip with the guy and then you just kill him. Carbon without a burst bomb is not a crazy main weapon. The appeal of this thing is basically the vertical, because it can sort of do similar things to the blaster thing, except you swap out the AoE for, you know, more roller style hitboxes. And that's really the vertical, because the horizontal is incredibly short range and dinky. Even after that last buff, which is, you know, fine. Carbon's name of the game is like vertical. It can actually just like goblin you under ledges. It's crazy. But it kind of needs burst bomb to combo effectively, because the range on one-shotting with vertical and horizontal is very, very small. Carbon Deco has burst bomb, this one doesn't, so it automatically goes down like significantly. And the thing with Zipcaster is it's too short range of a weapon to be effective with Zipcaster against like actual players, because they'll kind of just walk sideways and backwards and you don't really have the range to hit them. So it kind of sucks, to be honest. It's also kind of difficult, like as a main weapon, I don't think Carbon's that hard to learn, but like Zip is a difficult special, especially if you're new. I feel like the easiest Zip weapon if you're new to the game is basically Octobrush, but you have giant hitboxes in that case. Yeah, I think this weapon's kind of hard, and I don't think it's good. I don't recommend this one, I really don't. That applies if you're new, and that applies to comp too. That's like 20 pulled for comp actually, because this thing exists. Carbon Deco's fantastic. It has Burst Bomb and Zuka, and the reason that works is Carbon's a short range weapon, and Burst lets it combo to, you know, work with the somewhat like inconsistent-ish damage value sometimes, and to sort of make it easier to get kills on people, and it helps you crossfire at ranges that Carbon can't reach, you know, like mid-range, long range. So that's really good. And Zuka is really nice on Carbon because it's a short range weapon, so you kind of need something to deal with people in the back, like E-leaders and all that. You have a long range special that's quite strong. So yeah, if you play Carbon, I'm gonna be for real. This one's harder to learn because, you know, because it's its own thing. Like Zipcaster's hard on Red Carbon because it's bad. The Carbon Deco is really strong, but you know, you can get so good with it. I think it's like a little bit hard, but it's like well worth the reward. It's like you will win with this weapon like so much more. Like I'd be tempted to put it on closer to easier to win, but you know, it's still, it doesn't paint well. It needs to be enabled to some degree, so it's not like, you know, free in the sense of like weapons like up here. But yeah, Carbon Deco really good, really good. If you like Carbon, like this one is so much better. Clash Posture is a weapon that's basically kind of defined by being easy to play and like really effective at low level, and there's definitely a lot of like lower level players who kind of, you know, not to point fingers or anything, but I can understand if you're new and you see Clash and your immediate reaction is, what is that? That's broken. That guy has the biggest hitbox in the world and doesn't even need to aim. How is this not the best gun in the game? Range isn't crazy on it. Its kill time is super duper slow. It's kind of abusable in that sense. Once you fight it more and you get more experience depending on your weapon, of course, a lot of weapons have better kill time, so if you kind of like get really close to the Clash, which sounds counterintuitive because like, oh, won't they hit me? It's like, you might take 30 or 60 damage, but most weapons can kind of kill faster, particularly shooters. If you just like close the gap, it gets really awkward for them to aim at you, so you can kind of just bully them like that. Alternatively, the flip side of that is if you outrange this thing, it can't really do much because, again, slow kill time. Because Clash is a 4-shot. If you use indirects, because it does 30 damage on indirect, it does 60 on direct, but that is like basically one line of range, if I'm not mistaken, something around that. I don't even think between the two Clashes, Clashing is right here, because the way alphabetizing works. I'll throw that up, I think it's further here. It's easier to win with this one. Because this one has Pop Bomb Zuka, and that's like a strong kit. That's an insane kit. For sure. This one has curling plus Chump curling's really nice to move on Clash, because the thing with this weapon, it's really bad at moving, because it can't paint around itself very well at all. Its paint is short range and ugly, and by ugly I mean like it's not clean, so it's really difficult to move. So curling on this one helps with that a lot, but the trade-off is, you know, Zuko's like some crazy X Factor. Chump is like, it's okay. It can definitely create distractions and make space for you to do stuff with your main weapon, but it's not like the win con that like Zuka is in a solo queue sense. I definitely think red is a little bit easier to play because there's not really like an execution thing behind Chump. As opposed to like Zuka, where, you know, you need to hit some crazy shots sometimes, but yeah, I think it's a really easy weapon to learn. It's really good when you're new and like low level, because, you know, people can't aim yet, they don't know the counterplay yet, like all these sort of things. Yeah, if you're new, this weapon feels really broken, but as you start to fight better and better players, it's going to start feeling a lot worse. You know, it's not like bottom tier kind of bad necessarily, no, but definitely peaks when you're new, for sure. Here we have Squiffer. Someone's going to get mad at me. You can get mad at me in the comments, it's fine. Squiffer. I'm smiling right now in a really sarcastic way. Thing with Squiffer is it sort of lacks that win con I talked about. Like, Bubble can be really good. I have like Blaster up here. Like, this also has Bubble and it has point sensor. And Squiffer, its unique trait, I guess, is it's a charger, but it's not the longest range. But if you jump with it, the charge speed is the same with all of the chargers. The charge speed is significantly slower when you're jumping. Squiffer doesn't have that, but I always like to call this a coin flip weapon, because it's a very like all or nothing sort of thing. Because if you hit your shots, and you're fighting things that are Squiffer range or shorter, it feels really broken. But if you miss your shot, you kind of explode and die. So I call it the coin flip weapon, because it feels like every time you like commit to an interaction, you kind of just explode sometimes. If you're not taking these like particular angles or like sort of decently protected or at range. So it's kind of silly like that. It has point sensor, which is, yeah, in theory, it can make your shots a bit easier because you can see the people, but again, it kind of lacks that X factor to win. It feels like a kind of aggressive-ish main weapon, but the kit doesn't really play super aggressive. Like, don't get me wrong, you can put bubbles in certain positions and kind of be annoying, but you need to actually get into the position in the first place to put down the bubble. So when it comes to like coming out of spawn and being a disadvantage with this gun, it kind of sucks. You know, it's a charger, so you're gonna have to work a little bit to hit people that actually move, so I think it's a bit harder to win with it. You know, in terms of how easy it is to learn, honestly, I probably could move this higher. Again, this is just like, I made the placements like a week ago. It's just to give you a rough idea. It's not like super like mega thought out, developed series like King Bamboo is so much harder than Squirtle. Like, it's just a discussion video. The placements don't really matter so much. It's just to look pretty for you, basically. But yeah, I feel like Squiffer's a lot of people's for fun weapon. I say with like quotation marks, but yeah, it can be kind of frustrating. So I don't think it's like the best thing if you're new. We got Custom Blaster. It's a new weapon this season. It has point sensor. It has splashdown. I think it has a less defined win con than the Blaster. I think it's a bit easier to play. A little bit. It's yeah, I'm trying to think how to word this. Splashdown has like its niche case uses and definitely feels better if you're like newer to the game, because people don't know how to like shoot you down or punish you or whatever, and it feels like free kills and trades, and sometimes that's true. Like, don't get me wrong. But this weapon got no paint, and it's not necessarily like the worst thing to say, but it's got no paint and it's got no bomb. So this weapon in disadvantage is like genuinely one of the most miserable feeling things in the game. And yeah, I kind of can't get really past that. I don't have a super high opinion of it. Like, it's sort of the thing I talked about with normal Blaster, where it's when it's in those positions, it's really good for it. It feels super strong. But when you're not in those positions and you're being stuffed into spot, it feels so bad. And like, you really can't paint for Splashdown either. So it can feel really good or it can feel really bad. It's not bad for sure, but I definitely think it's harder to win with this than this. Because this advantage has like higher peaks than this. I feel like Custom Blaster is like a little bit cheesy. Let's talk about Custom Dualie Squelcher. Another one of the harder weapons to learn in the game. Also, I'm noticing, as I'm recording this, I should have mentioned this earlier, but there's so many things to talk about today. Exciting. If at any point you don't know in this video about specific weapon quirks or something that I'm not, mentioning or talking about, or I forget to, because I'm trying to sort of explain main weapons to some degree, but I'm noticing I say like, oh, this is a 2-shot, this is a 4-shot, this is a 3-shot, blah 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 blah. All that can be found on the wiki really easily if you just look up the name of the weapon. I would highly recommend you to do that, particularly if you're new, because these sort of things are sort of the thing you need to like learn with experience and over time. And I don't want to like explain every facet of every weapon, like, oh hey, this weapon uses 2% ink per bullet, so you get 50 bullets in the tank. Like, I'm not gonna talk, you could just read about that. But with Squelchy, to simplify how it works, it's a dually. It rolls, but when it rolls, it slides, which is really good for kiting and moving and being difficult to kill, which is nice. It's pretty ink hungry, so it doesn't have the best efficiency. It paints okay. Its kill time is not great. It's a 4-shot. It only does 28 damage per bullet, which is not amazing. It's definitely one of the harder weapons to learn in the game because, the mix of, yeah, you can kite really, really well, but your kill time is kind of slow, so you sort of need to, have the really amazing aim and take those fights that you can win despite your kind of like mid-ish kill time and your like mid-ish range. Like, it's really good, but it feels really bad at the same time is sort of the best way I can describe it. And the kits are okay on paper, but they're not the greatest for solo queue. This one has beacon chump, which is really, really good in stuff like zones and advantage on maps like Crab Leg, because this weapon goes crazy on grades and beacons are crazy on that map and all that stuff. Custom Dualie Squelcher sees a lot of usage in Japanese turf war at high level. Because the kit is super duper good and it's a really difficult main weapon to kill. It's definitely one of the most fun weapons in the game, main weapon-wise for me. You'll have to learn a lot with this thing, but I think, long term it's really fun. So if you sort of like that playstyle of, oh, I'm difficult to kill, or oh, I got that kill before that guy killed me, and rolling in and out, and I'm abusing geometry like this, and I'm going with my chumps like this, or I'm distracting them and jumping out to my beacon and making them burn a Zuka, like stuff like that. If you really like that kind of gameplay, this thing's awesome. I would definitely recommend it. It's not the easiest thing to win with in the world, but it's really satisfying to just play. And when you do well with it, definitely one of my favorite weapons. Main weapons in this game. Custom Dualie Squelcher in Splatoon 2 is like one of my most played, and normal Dualie Squelcher was the first weapon I 5-starred in Splatoon 3 for what it's worth. If me saying, oh, you should try it out, I really like the weapon, like, no, that was the first weapon I 5-starred the other kit, so I'm not lying on that front. Really fun. Really fun. Custom Goo Tuber. Friend over here. Where do you even begin with Goo Tuber? It's a charger. It has one of the slowest charge times in the game. Its range is not incredible. Its range is okay. It's quirky unlike other chargers, because with every other charger you need a full charge to either kill or do maximum damage. And that's true on this thing, but in spite of that, I don't know the exact percentage. I want to say around like 65 to 70-ish% of a charge. You actually deal more than 100 damage, so you can OHKO people with partials, which sounds appealing at first. And this weapon can do charge holds. That's what it was really designed around. It has really good tap shot paint, and it makes it sound like, oh, there's a lot of good traits on this weapon, but the problem is it kind of has an identity crisis where it can't really decide if it wants to fiend for kills like a Squiffer, hold a charge like a charger, or just spam tap shots for like its special. It kind of feels a bit mixed. This one has Fizzy plus Hammer, and Hammer's kind of weird because Hammer's a special weapon that's really effective in close range, and Goo Tuber is really not effective in short range, so you would think, oh, that fixes a problem it has. And it's like, yeah, sometimes you can kind of get away with that, but if you kind of know how to play against Hammer and you kind of know how to not like be silly and like do bad plays around Charger, it kind of just doesn't really feel that threatening. Yeah, no, we'll get to later. Talk about it, but I'll wait on that. Lost my place. Perfect. YouTuber. Can you tell I have too many layers yet? Okay, here we go. Yeah. I don't really have a high opinion of this thing. It kind of just exists to me. It has a hammer. Hammer at lower level when you're new is pretty effective. I think because it's a charger and has these like kind of quirky mechanics, it's not really that easy to learn. And I don't think it's super worth learning. That's why I kind of have it on the harder to win, because there are easier like main weapons to play that have hammer though. Like go up here and we'll get to that. But yeah, I don't really highly recommend this one if you're new. Honestly, it's kind of a quirky like troll weapon. Kind of how I look at it. On the flip side, on an easy main weapon to learn, Custom Jet. It's a shooter. It has long range. It 4-shots. It does 32 damage per bullet, which is pretty nice. Its kit is incredibly straightforward to almost default because it has no crazy like X factor to just like win games, which is why it's like, you know, maybe a little bit closer on the harder to win because like it's a really solid main weapon. Its kit is like really decent, but it doesn't just like win the game for you kind of weapon. Rain is really good at combos. It helps it control areas. Mist is really good on choke points. It kind of feels like when you're playing Custom Jet, this would be a great spot to have some like cutesy analogy, but I don't have one. So the best thing I can tell you is that when you play this weapon, it feels like you're kind of just constantly saying no to the opponent because they're like, I'm gonna walk in this area. You have the mist and you just point at them with the main gun. You're like, no. It feels like you're constantly spray bottling the opponent when you play this thing. Like it's just like your pet is being bad and like gonna like knock over your house. Stop, no, you can't, no, you can stop. Like, that's what this gun feels like. And it's like, you can do all you want with it, and that's fine and dandy, you can dissuade the opponent all you want, but like, eventually they might get in and do the thing that you don't want them to do, because, you know, its kill time is like, okay, but it's not like the greatest, you know, it's not the craziest, like, CQC fighter. But, you know, the main weapon's, like, solid, it's respectable. Again, no, like, crazy, just, like, win button on it, which was fine. It's fairly basic as a main weapon. I think it's like very easy to understand this weapon, and I think there's a reason a lot of people pick Vanilla Jet in Splatoon 2 just because it's like, oh, it's comfortable, I have range, I'm a shooter, I point at the enemy, I tell them no. Yeah, this is kind of more of that. You know, that's fine. I think it's decent. Custom Junior. If you like being annoying but not actually picking like amazing weapons, this is great because it's a junior, so it's super ink efficient. It's a lightweight. Its frame data is insane. It has a bajillion ink efficiency, so you can throw a million torpedoes. That's not even an exaggeration. And it builds its special really fast. That special is Wave Breaker, which is definitely a special that falls off as you get better at the game and is considered the weakest special in the game for the most part by most players competitively at the time I'm making this video, which is unfortunate because it's the only special I have a golden badge for because I played a lot of it when the game was new. Yeah, this weapon's annoying, but when you get past that and you actually shoot the torpedoes down and realize that Junior's a super flawed main weapon with like short range and like not amazingly consistent accuracy and all that stuff, like, yeah, it's kind of just an annoying weapon. It's not actually like, good, it's just obnoxious. It has a lot of problems. It's very easy to play on like a mechanical level, but yeah, it's not great. So like winning with this and trying to like, oh, I'm gonna clutch in solo queue with it, like it's not built for that. Yeah, funny weapon to be annoying, but if you're trying to like win, I don't recommend. I feel like you can accomplish both of those a bit better with regular junior, even if they are different rules. We'll get to that. Regular Dapple. Dapple's a really popular weapon amongst like, maybe not lower level, but like I feel like this weapon's like not seen at top level for like a multitude of reasons, but it's really, really good when you're new-ish to the game. Because it paints decently, it has really fast dodge rolls, so its frame data feels crazy, its kill time is one of the best in the game. Decently ink efficient. It does a very fast, kind of difficult to pin down weapon when you're newer. And this kit has Beacon plus Cooler, which is kind of silly in multiple ways, because, you know, when you get the ball rolling on that, when you have map control with this thing, you have a bunch of beacons laid down, you're, you know, popping out the coolers, and your team feels like even when they die, they're still in advantage state the whole time between that and the beacons. It feels really good. But in terms of neutral and fighting and how it gets outranged by quite literally everything that isn't, you know, like junior Aerospray, that's tough. But I feel like those weaknesses are kind of, that's like the trade-off with this thing. And I feel like when you're newer, you kind of get away with it to a degree that I would actually go so far as to say when you're newer, like Dapple Nouveau is actually kind of strong. But when you're newer to the game, because again, you have like quick kill time and difficult to pin down, this is that. And this one also has Torpedo and Reef Slider, and Torpedo on top of your movement speed and your fast kill time and all that can be really, really annoying, because if you're actually good at aiming and sort of just like running at people well, like you kind of just kill them. And that's a crazy strong trait to have when you're new and like most people can't aim like forward correctly yet. So at lower level solo queue, this thing goes kind of crazy. It has a fast playstyle, so you know if you like moving, this thing's pretty cool for you. We'll get to it. I think once you improve at the game, swapping from Dapple to like regular Dualie, particularly like the vanilla kit, I think is like kind of the better long-term goal. But these are really appealing weapons if you're like just getting into the game, honestly, and you just like moving. So, you know, pretty cool. Tetra is another Dualie. I think this weapon's pretty hard to learn. You know, maybe not this far down, but the complication with this is the way that other Dualies operate in this game is that when you're rolling, you can't shoot. There's sort of that in-between period, and that gives the opponent counterplay in the sense of they can shoot at you freely mid-roll animation when you're stuck on end lag after finishing your rolls. Tetra kind of is an extreme design where you're actually allowed to shoot mid-roll, which sounds crazy, right? But the way that it works is when you're doing standing fire, the weapon's a lot less accurate than when you're rolling. So when you're rolling, and you can shoot off rolling, you are more accurate, and you get 4 rolls with this thing, which is a lot. However, the downside is that once you complete that 4th roll, or, you know, you just like finish your roll animation, like once you're done rolling and you kind of just like sit there, it's basically like a full second of end lag, which is kind of crazy because kill times are fast in this game. So you kind of just get blown up when you roll at people. Say you take a fight and you're trying to aim at the guy and they kind of just like dance around you, and then you haven't killed them by the time your 4th roll comes out. They have a really free window in that moment to just kind of kill you. Like, when you play this thing and you're fighting like a charger and you finish your 4th roll in the open, like, bro's just gonna point at you and kill you. So this is like the Giga QR weapon where it's like, you want to just fight with this thing. You always want to just fight and distract and fight and just die like 16 times. And that's okay because you got some crazy multi-kill on one of those fights. Like, I'm not telling you to go feed, but this is like the fighting weapon ever. In that sense. So if you like just running at people and like just being a problem and creating distractions, all that, this thing's pretty cool for you. It has auto bomb, which is like a decent like cheap bomb to throw at scouts, can help you like poke at things. That's nice. Brave Slider is it goes really well with the Tetra playstyle. Just like once you understand how Tetra works, like Brave Slider is a really good synergy on that. It does have the weakness of, you know, the weapon's paint is like, it's, you know, it's like okay. Again, accuracy is kind of like shaky unless you're like actually committing to rolls and all that, which you will be like a lot with this weapon, don't get me wrong, but it feels like a very like all or nothing kind of weapon in terms of like, you gotta just like run at people and it's like, you know, the smart Tetras will do things like ending their 4th roll behind a wall or beyond a piece of geometry, so it's harder for the opponent to actually go kill you. You know, there's little things you can do like that to optimize your weapon for sure. But I don't think this is like the most beginner friendly weapon because you have to aim a lot while moving, and like that sounds really basic because that applies to every weapon. It's like, Keem, what are you talking about? That's so exaggerated. You have to super aim at this weapon because again, you're taking all these fights. If you don't win these fights, you're just gonna die over and over and over. Like, if you're an aim god and you can understand how to move effectively while aiming at the opponent, well, like this thing's amazing. But yeah, like I've talked about sticks and motion controls very much in this video. Obviously, you know, pick your preference, whatever you like. This is the kind of weapon, I don't even think you can physically play this with stick controls and actually like succeed with like super hard. Like, you need to operate so many things at the same time and have like steady aim and all that. Like this is a, like, I'm always impressed whenever I see a good Tetra just like roll up on people and have like these like crazy movements of just like lasering people. Like it's really fascinating. For sure. I've talked about Tetra a lot, but yeah, I think it's a difficult weapon for you. I honestly wouldn't super recommend it for you, but in terms of just like for fun, like it's incredibly unique. There's no weapon like this. And you know, being a dualie, you can actually like roll over enemy. I can't even like mention that. Obviously you take damage and all that, but you can sort of like cheat in air quotations. Like a lot of interactions will be like, I'm just gonna roll at the enemy or roll at the guy and enemy, and you can just take the fight and you just win sometimes. Kind of silly. Wringer, it's a bucket. Its frame data is not great. Its damage value is simultaneously really high and really low, because basically with Wringer, every time you slosh, there's 2 sloshes. One of them deals 48 damage, the other one deals 42. So if you hit both sloshes, that's great. It does a I almost actually accidentally broke my PG real quick with the phrasing on that one. It does a lot of damage if you hit both sloshes, but its kill time is not great. It has Suction Bomb, which can combo with the main weapon, and Suction Bomb can also combo with the Reslider. So, you know, there's some synergy going on, but the general pacing of the weapon is not fantastic because of the aforementioned slow kill time. Its ink efficiency isn't amazing. It paints a decent amount, honestly, which is pretty good. This weapon's mainly used for Splatstone's cheese because, you know, it can output a lot of sliders, its paint is decent, the bomb is nice. In terms of actually fighting, other buckets are definitely better, so it's not like the strongest weapon in the game, but you know, if you enjoy just like slamming the opponent with the penalty in zones right now, this weapon's pretty fun. I would definitely recommend, you know, obviously this is so ridiculous, but if you're playing this weapon, you pair it with things like Burst Bomb and like Splash-O-Matic and Stamper, it feels a lot better. This weapon definitely needs like teammates and weapons that can crossfire to compensate for the fact its kill time is slow. Its frame data is not great, but you know, it's decently fun. It's entertaining enough. So the next weapon I'm going to talk about is the vanilla Squelcher, and I have it as a difficult weapon to learn, although I think it's a bit harder to win with this one, despite the fact it has a Splat Bomb, and you're probably wondering, oh, Keen, why's that? Again, with this weapon, it's super ink hungry, so throwing a bomb and fighting is kind of out of the question unless you have something like Comeback or LDE in play, or just over a lot of ink efficiency. Because Squelcher feels like one of the most gear-dependent weapons in the game, along with something like Rage Blaster, because you just want like every ability, because like, oh, I want the ink efficiency, I want the mobility, I want the Intensify to make my accuracy better. You know, you want like so many things and you only have so many ability slots, so it's kind of tough with this thing. Like Bomb is always good, you can never complain about that, but again, Wavebreaker is a special, it's really fun. In the sense of, oh, you could two-shot someone, that's 56 damage with this weapon. And that combos with the 45 damage of Wavebreaker, and it sounds really good in theory. But you know, as people got better and Wavebreaker kind of just gets like worse and worse, it doesn't really actually happen against good players much at all anymore. And if I'm not mistaken, it's like an expensive Wavebreaker. It's like 200 or something on this. Maybe. Is it more? No, I don't think it's more. I think it's like 200. Maybe the weapon paints decently, but that's like a lot of work for like a kind of mediocre special. So, you know, it doesn't really have like that super X factor to just like win the game. Like Chop isn't that either, but at least like when you snowball with custom Squelcher, like you snowball on the right maps, like your whole team can snowball, it's not just you. Again, one of the most fun main weapons in the game. I definitely think it's one of the hardest main weapons to like get like super good at. Like if you ever watch Seiryu, a top Japanese like Dualie Squelcher play, like amazing gameplay, just the way it flows, it looks so much fun. It's just so fluid. Yeah, I really like this thing. If you're just playing for fun and you want like a hard weapon, like by all means go for it. I love this thing. Again, my first 5-star in this game was this weapon. Super duper fun. So the next weapon is Dynamo Roller. If you're new to the game, you don't know this thing's history. Basically the history of Dynamo in a nutshell. Splatoon 1 Dynamo, before the nerfs, was one of the most broken things I've ever seen in the game. Because it's roller, and it had big one-shot hitbox, and it, like, White Ink was added as a mechanic to nerf this thing specifically, and what White Ink is, if you don't know this game, is like, it's basically cooldowns, and by cooldowns I mean, if you flick with the weapon, you'll notice there's a bit of time before you start recovering ink. That's what White Ink is, it's just a cooldown before you can, like, immediately start recovering. Dynamo didn't have that at all before, it wasn't a heavyweight weapon, so its movement penalty didn't exist, and on top of that, the thing had a hitbox even when you weren't out of ink, so you could literally be out of ink and still OHKO people. It's really, really stupid. Especially with damage up. Yeah, that weapon got nerfed like, I don't even know, like 8 times or something at least in Splatoon 1, and even by then, by the end of the game, it was still like comfortably high tier on like a bad day. So yeah, that thing's interesting. This is Splatoon 3 Dynamo though, and the name of the game is Inconsistency, I guess, because sometimes it feels crazy like that, but then sometimes it's like, the dude's in front of you and you just whiff. Yeah, so it's a really clunky weapon. Its frame data is like really, really poor to compensate. You have big hitbox, whether that's consistent or not is left up to whatever the game feels like that day sometimes. I'm not a big fan of vertical. It's like a 70-something frame wind-up animation, or not like great reward. Like, I'm just not a fan of how the vertical is designed right now, TBH. Like most of the Dynamo gameplays is horizontals. It has Sprinkler Cooler. Sprinkler's like a nice sub on this because it helps you like passively build for special, and like Cooler's really nice on Dynamo in theory because it kind of just lets you like trade multiple people in positive ways because you respawn like instantly with your Tacticooler up, and you know, it really appreciates having like the mobility perks of like ink res and swim speed and all that, because this weapon is like, when you paint this weapon's feet, it can't move. Like, you're stuck, you're dead, bro, you're dead. So I really like the kit on this thing. I think on a base level it's not too difficult to learn, but you have to deal with all the downsides of like, oh, I have no ink efficiency, or oh, I can barely move, or oh, my hitboxes are inconsistent, or oh, I'm like bad at hitting my verticals. Like, there's a lot of execution barriers to overcome. with this weapon, and not even just all execution barriers. There's execution barriers and like genuine downside to this weapon that can make it feel kind of miserable sometimes, but like, you know, when it works, it works. It feels nice. I like the kit. We also have Gold Dynamo. It has Spot Bomb Chump. Spot Bomb is like okay on Dynamo, but you don't really throw it a ton because it's a super ink hungry weapon, so you don't have a lot of freedom to throw that, I would say. But Chump is a really nice ink refill, and it, you know, creates space, can make some sort of pressure, which is nice. But losing the Sprinkler kind of sucks because Dynamo can't move, and committing to those flicks is kind of nightmarish sometimes. In terms of like, oh, I'm being shot at, I gotta move or I'll die instantly. Silver Dynamo at least has Sprinkler to paint its feet and walls and like kind of get away sometimes, even if it is an expensive sub to throw. Just for that one moment, it's still really important. So losing that on a Gold Dynamo is kind of rough, and not having Cooler kind of gives it less mobility and like less freedom to just like trade people. It feels like with Gold Dynamo, it's sort of like closer to Splatoon 1 Gold Dynamo in the sense of I feel like the devs just want you to like paint 2000 with it or something, because that one had triple, or not triple. Splatoon 1 Gold Dynamo had Spot Bomb and Ink Strike, and it just felt like they wanted you to just like paint an absurd amount with that thing, especially with how it painted in Splatoon 1. That's fine, it's not crazy. The people that love Dynamo, I feel like Dynamo has one of those player bases where it's like the most like loyal people ever, in the sense of like, they're like the loudest to complain. It's like, my weapon can't do X. It's like, yeah, but you're still playing it after like 7 years of it being nerfed. So like, clearly you like that thing. Like, it's, you know, it's fun. It's funny to me. You know, that's cool. Let's talk about E-Leader. Actually, let's look at the recording. Oh my god, it's been almost an hour and we're on E-Leader. Wow. That's great. This is gonna be a super long video. This is actually gonna be such a long form video. When I was coming with the idea for this video, I'm like, yeah, I'll talk about each weapon for like a minute or two, but I don't want to like half-ass it and just be like, this weapon's good. Like, no, that's boring. Like, I have experience in this game, and I want to like make it feel like I'm actually like giving every weapon like a genuine like, you know, like talking about to some degree. So, you know, if you're listening, you know, like the 1 hour mark, and thank you. First of all, that's pretty cool. I'm glad you're enjoying it. Second of all, you know, feel free to take breaks or whatever. You don't have to sit here and like listen to me talk for however obscene like length this video is, like nonstop. Like you could just like break it down day by day. Like I like my long form video essays too and stuff. I was watching one recently. It was like almost 5 hours, and I think I just, you know, broke it down bit by bit, and I watched it over the course of, you know, maybe like a week and a half or something. Yeah, it was nice. Like I enjoyed that. So, you know, if you want to break down this video like that, that's cool too. Yeah, we're chilling. I'm having fun just talking. And I kind of want to make more videos where I sort of talk like this in general, just like free form. I don't have a script for this. I'm just, this is like pure, like from the heart, just talk about thing you like. But that feels like some of the most genuine kind of content you kind of get on the site. Because a lot of it, like, a lot of people like talking about things can just feel fabricated, you know, like just like top 10, this, that. Like, sometimes you just want to like hear someone talk about a thing because they like the thing and you like the thing. So hearing them talk about the thing, it's like, yeah, that's cool. I don't know, I'm getting off track, but you know, it's such a long video that I feel like if you're still listening at this point, like me going off track for a minute is like nothing, you know? E-Leader! Splatoon 1 Classic. It's kind of funny, I talk about Dynamo, now E-Leader. This weapon's hard if you're new. It's a charger, but it has the longest charge time in the game outside of Goo Tuber, which is like a little bit longer for full charge specifically, but like realistically, this is the longest charge time for a charger in the game. There you go. That's words. It has Wave Breaker, which, you know, fell off super hard, as I've been saying. Kind of hard. A lot of people, you know, that are like newer to the game try and pick this thing up, but you can definitely tell they're not like super comfy, or they're missing their shots, or, you know, they're getting overwhelmed or ran at. That happens. I don't think this is an easy weapon. It feels really oppressive, and people like will complain, you know, even at higher level, me included, being like, I hate fighting E-Leader, I hate Respawn Punisher, blah, 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 blah. That's me. I don't like fighting them, but it is hard, for sure. It does have a lot of actual downsides. Yeah, not really beginner friendly, I'll be for real. And not the easiest thing to win with in solo queue, because you can't just like run at people and like win with this. You have to just be willing to sit there and play that long game and be patient. Like, eventually it might come to you, but sometimes when there's a game where you just need to walk forward and kill people, this thing will not be your weapon. It will not do that for you. So kind of hard in multiple senses. Yeah. Empry, you'll notice I have Empry really close to Dapple Nouveau, and I like to look at it as like a split evolution. You know, it's like you have an Applin, and it can evolve into a Diplin, or a Flapple, or an Appleton. It's kind of like that, where I don't even know what the Applin would be. Well, actually, no, the Applin would be like fast-moving rat weapon that cheats the game by rolling over enemy ink or whatever. And I feel like this is like that split evolution of like, I want fast kill time and fast roll, and then you evolve into like Dapple Nouveau, where it's like, I want a rat weapon with the ability to cross the map fast and have like kind of panic button, but not like kind of sort of panic button, because like Reslider and Splashdown aren't like pure panic button, but you can kind of get away with it and get kills sometimes or trades. These weapons feel really similar, if you know what I mean. So Empry, I think it's like a better main weapon than like Splat Dualies as a main weapon. I think it's better than Dapple. It's like a little bit harder to play, but like that frame data buff they gave it is like kind of wild, honestly. Curling lets it rat around. Fighting a good appraisal is like really obnoxious, but like bad appraisal will just like feed you over and over and over. Like there's a really like clear cut, you know, when someone's good at Empry, but the people that are good at it are really good at it. But I definitely think it's harder to play than Dapple by at least a little bit, for sure. Yeah, actually, like this weapon, I don't think it's like amazing, but I think a good one can really not set the tempo. That's not really a good one. Can really throw off a team and sort of like create like sort of mayhem and like be a distraction and like, you know, to start melting people from the back and just sort of make you paranoid on like flanks and all that or whatever. Like just the general way that it plays feels like an offset of like Sploosh, where it's just this really annoying weapon that shouldn't be getting away with what it is, but it kind of just does sometime, and you have to accept that and just like stop them from doing it. You know, like I talked earlier about like custom jets, like, oh, you're spray bottling the guy, like stop. Like I feel like the guy you're spray bottling like 9 out of 10 times is like a Sploosh, a Dapple, or like Empry kind of like weapon. So, you know, it's a funny weapon for sure. I think it's like Dapple Nouveau and Empry are like really like close to each other in terms of like what they want to do. It's just the execution's like a bit different on both of them. But I you know, I think you know what I mean in that sense, right? Explo, I love this one. I was like throwing, like, where did I watch it? It's down here. Explo's a really hard main weapon to learn. It's one of my favorite. You notice that? Do you notice the recurring thing where like a lot of the hard to learn weapons? You notice that? You notice that? Yeah, Expo's kind of hard to learn, especially if you're new, because I feel like this kind of weapon demands that you actually understand how maps work, and like you need to know like map geometry and like where people hide. You need to be comfortable with bad frame data. You need to be comfortable not being able to kill people fast when they like run up on you. But you know, I always compare it. Playing Explosher is like playing a game of Battleship, and if you've never played Battleship, it's like you hit a tile at a time. So it's like you have letters like A to F or like whatever it is, and then like numbers like 1 to 10. So it'll be like, I'm gonna aim at B6, and that's like whenever there's a guy there, your opponent would just say like hit, because you hit them. Expo's kind of like that. You just like pick a point, you shoot, and if you hit someone, it's like cool. If you don't hit someone, it's like okay, cool, that's paint or whatever. Because the weapon's paint is really good, especially on walls. Its paint output's great. It has rain, it has point sensor. The problem with this thing is, again, bad frame data. Kit does not help it survive in close range, so you kind of just get harassed by people throwing things at you, or just running at you with like cooler, or the combination of both, and that's really oppressive. But when you find an Expo and it's a map where you can kind of just oppress and sort of deny all these areas, like it's really annoying because this dude's just throwing like hitboxes. And I talked about it with Blob. Other slashers have fall off, Expo and Blob do not, and I don't think Machine AoE also doesn't have fall off. It always 3-shots you regardless. But those are the 3 exceptions to bucket. So regardless of how far the Expo is from you, like above or under you or whatever, if it directs you, you're taking 90 damage and your feet are getting painted. That's tough. So it's really scary in that sense, but you know, it's a weapon of extremes. Like when it feels good, it feels good. When it feels bad, you're getting like completely rolled. But you know, if you're okay with that, or you like kind of revel and like, oh, I'd win. I'd CQC and beat the Dapple or something, and you actually do it. Like if you're cool with that, and you kind of just like playing the game of like trying like sort of not find your opponent. Sometimes yeah, because point sensor. If you know there's a guy there, you can throw that and find them to make it easier to hit your like shots. If you're like cool with the idea of just like kind of hitting behind walls in a way that like very few weapons can effectively do, and sort of just like chipping and chunking at people and like painting a lot. Like this weapon's awesome. It's amazing. I really like this thing. I really hope the second kit's like good. Let's talk about Flingza Roller again. We're getting to the point where there's so many weapons, but struggling to find it when I need to like unhide the thing. Flingza is a weapon that definitely fell off a ton from the beginning of S3, and the simple reason that is, Missile got nerfed a lot, rightfully. Basically, people were spamming this thing in the early days because Missile was really dumb and bugged and like as strong as S2, if not stronger, because bomb defense wasn't working against Missile. And Missile was again bugged, and I talked about that in my other video with, what was it? I talked about that in my Reflex Deco video if you're curious on that, or depth or whatever. I'm not gonna like reiterate like everything ever because this video is going on long enough. But Flingza, its vertical is really good. It paints a clean line. It goes really far. Its horizontal is okay. It's really bad at fighting in the mid-range because you either need to commit to a vertical or like commit to like trying to close the gap to horizontal. And I forget the exact particulars, but like the horizontal on Flingza, you can't like do the normal roller thing where like you just like sit under a ledge and just like flap the guy or whatever, like just like thud it on the, like Flingza's not good at that really. Like it can do it, but it's not nearly as good as regular roller. And the thing, vertical is like such a long windup, you can't do that either, like the thing that Carbon does that I talked about. I guess you technically can, but not really, because the thing with that is like when you jump with roller and you do the vertical, like the frame data is good on Carbon and Reg roller to do that because it's fast enough of an animation. It's too long in Flingza to do that, so with this thing, it's like this weird hybrid of it's a roller, yeah, but you're kind of just painting for the most part in a game. And I kind of look at Big Swig as the opposite of this, because with Flingza, the name of the game is like vertical, spam, vertical, paint good, and Big Swig is like horizontal, 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 and then you already have special. Yeah, it definitely fell off. It's not good at fighting and cooler. Again, it's really awkward in the like mid-range, but you know, if you're kind of like, you want to play like a missile weapon and have like pretty decent paint, but also the ability to one-shot someone if they get too close to you, and you kind of like Inkmine, you know, Flings is cool. You know, it's not bad by any means. It's not like the worst thing ever, but you're definitely picking it for missiles. Like don't get twisted. It's like, oh, I'm gonna be the aggressive Flings. That's like you can try, but not really like the weapon for that. Let's talk about Foil Squeezer. I have it like down here. The thing with Squeezer is by principle, it's like still basically a shooter with two modes. The thing is, there's an execution barrier, more so than like it's like a mechanical execution barrier with Squeezer as opposed to something like Ballpoint where it's like, yeah, it's a mechanical execution barrier, but a lot of it's also like knowledge based. With Squeezer, it's like literally just it has two modes of fire, and the one that's short range and paints in 4 shots and isn't like good at fighting is you just hold the button down. But if you want to actually like crossfire and use your long range with like 100% jump accuracy, which is like super DLC privilege by the way, because basically no shooter has that outside of Splash, which, you know, it's another privilege shooter we'll get to. Squeezer is an incredible main weapon. Just having full accuracy and the range that it has, it's easily one of the best main weapons in the game. Like, no question, you cannot like argue that. But again, it does have that execution barrier, because with that, to do that kind of firing, it's one tap of the shoot button equals 1 long range shot. So yeah, you need to be really comfortable with having those like prolonged periods of just like mashing, because like it's still a shooter, so the fire rate's like decently fast. I think it's like a little bit faster than Jet Squelcher if I'm not mistaken, or like similar to. I'm not 100% on that, don't quote me. Consult the wiki if you don't know. Just saying. You know, we get the luxury of like a wiki that's actually like decently helpful. Some games like the wiki just tells you the most like bare bones, like nothing. Like at least with the Splatoon wiki, it's like actually giving you parameters and all that fun stuff. Like, so sometimes you want to look up something for a game, and it's like just like the wiki sucks, man. Yeah, Squeezer's a crazy main weapon. It has auto bump screen. I know like some people aren't like big on screen in terms of strength. And I feel like I'm not going to be surprised if it gets like adjusted at some point in the future, because this video is at the time that like they rework the screen to not be as like visually overstimulating, which is good. That's an accessibility thing that should always work that way. Like I've talked about it, but accessibility of a game takes more priority over the viability of a special. I don't think you should argue that. Yeah, like I don't think screen's like the craziest thing ever. I like it because it's fun, but yeah, it's not the strongest special in the world for sure. And Autobomb's like no Splat Bomb for sure. Like Splat Bomb Squeezer is like some like SSSSS tier combo. But you know, it's a cheap bomb. It can combo. It's free info. It pokes people. It's still a lethal bomb. Can't complain about that. I don't think it's like the easiest thing to win with necessarily because it does have green, which is not like some crazy X factor. But it's like it's such a crazy main weapon that like it's still really it's such a good main weapon with a bomb that like you can't like it's still easy to win, quote unquote, just because like it's just so solid. That's all I really have to say on it. Let's talk about Forge, which is funny because in Splatoon 2, comparing Forge and Foil Squeezer was like the comparison ever, because Foil Squeezer in Splatoon 2 was just like Giga DLC power crept Forge, and it was really funny, and people would still pick Forge because again of that execution barrier on Squeezer. Forge in this game kind of falls in the boat of like Clash, I guess I would say, where it's like a weapon that's really easy to understand and basic, which is really good if you're new to the game. It has Suction Bomb and Booyah Bomb. It's okay. The main weapon's a shooter, but it kind of lacks a lot of the privileges of normal shooter because it's not ink efficient. It doesn't have a crazy strafe speed. It has decent damage values. I think it's like 41 or 42 per bullet, if I'm not mistaken, which is pretty high. Its range is okay. I say okay because, you know, we just talked about Squeezer, whose range is insane. And it has full, like, accuracy, jumping and standing with Tap Shot. Forge does have Jump RNG. Its range is less than Squeezer. Its ink efficiency is, like, worse, I'm pretty sure. Forge is a very, like, mid weapon. And most of the time you hear mid, that's, like, a derogatory thing. It's, like, mid equal bad, but, like, I genuinely mean middling by that. Like, when I say mid, like, Forge is not bad. But it's definitely not good. Like, you don't see this thing in comp or, like, any of that. Like, you really don't. Like, it's just the epitome of, like, you, like, slap the B on it. Just like, yeah, that's alright. You know, it's okay. So, you know, if you're new, Forge is, like, pretty appealing. Because, you know, again, but it has more range than some, like, other shooters. So it's not, like, the most baby gun thing ever. Hey, you know, you point, you click. It has a lethal bomb. It has a Booyah Bomb. Big whoop. Like, that's cool. I still think it doesn't need a 210 Booyah or whatever it is right now. It's too high because the weapon doesn't have really good paint output either. It's fine. I personally have a low opinion of it, but I will acknowledge it's a very simple weapon to play with a very effective kit that makes a lot of sense. So if you're new to the game and you want a shooter that makes sense and like a kit that synergizes, this is fine. Feel free. Not my cup of tea. I know it falls off extremely hard as you get better at the game, but you know, feel free. It's fine. And it genuinely is like a good pick for beginners. Like this is I have my bias, but you know, good pick for beginner. I cannot dispute this. Glooga. So we talked about 52 Gal and how it's kind of that privilege and it's a shooter with like crazy frame data and good paint and blah 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 blah. Glooga's like a mid ground of like 52 and 96 with the dualie mechanic thrown in, where basically the standing fire is really bad because it's basically like off-brand dollar store 52 Gal, where it 3-shots and its accuracy sucks and its paint is worse than 52. But the trade-off is that it has 2 modes of fire, and when you roll with it, you're like in a turret animation. And if you sit still with that, your range increases exponentially, your accuracy increases, and I believe you're damaging? Yeah, you're damaging. I'm dumb. Of course your damage increases, because instead of being a 3-shot that sucks, it's a 2-shot with like respectable range. I don't actually remember where like they buffed out like a little bit, not the literal range, but the range where like the fall off or whatever like recently. So I actually don't fully know its range like right now. I think it's like less than Squeezer, less than Jet, but like clearly more than stuff like Forge. So it's like a decent respectable thing. Its kit is really good for what it is. Like wall helps the weapon's vulnerability in turret mode, because again, you need to commit to a roll to get the good 2-shot on people. That's the problem with it. It has like actual startup and like commitment to it. But, you know, if you get in those positions, it can feel kind of over, like, bearing sometimes, because it's like, oh, that guy has a wall down, I can't shoot back at him, and he's, like, threatening this, like, 2-shot in this really, like, big, like, line of space. That's pretty good. And Booyah Bomb is good for it. Helps increase its survivability. It can help it set up with wall. It's really cheap at 180, because the weapon's paint is not very good, so. I had a bias against Glooga in Splatoon 2, because I really didn't think it was very good as the main weapon now, but, like, I have to give it, like, some credit in this game. Despite its flaws, it does something okay. It definitely has that execution barrier, because again, you need to be stationary to get that good 2-shot, and you need to commit to the roll beforehand, because if you commit to the turret and you like wiggle your control stick at all, you'll like immediately revert to like the crappy dollars for 52 garbage I talked about. So it's like, it requires you to play a very specific way, but if you like get it going with that, it can be really good. It's just, it also is the kind of weapon that's like really good on flat maps, like elevated maps it just doesn't, because wall doesn't really function there as well, and you need line of sight obviously because it's still like a shooter-ish type weapon by design. But it has a lot of problems, but it's definitely respectable. I cannot argue this. So now that I've gotten up and taken a break, I think it would be the appropriate time to remind you, because I forgot to say it in the beginning of the video, because I get so distracted by actually making the content sometimes, I legitimately forget, like, telling people, it's like, you should subscribe and blah blah blah, like, yeah, this is, you know, it's been like an hour of the video, give or take. So yeah, you know, if you're still here and you haven't subbed, yeah, please. Yeah, no, I want to put out more videos, sort of like this, you know, all the usual stuff like that. You know, if you're enjoying it, you know, subbing, liking the video, commenting, all that, you know, it actually does help a lot. You know, when I see a video perform well, it actually makes me want to make more content. So yeah, because this is a hobby. Like no one's like holding me hostage, being like, Keen, you gotta talk for 2 hours about Splatoon weapons, or I'm unsubscribed. This is literally just, I like the game and I want to talk about it. So that's what we're here for. We talked about Glooga. Let's go back. Where are we? Goo Tuber, we talked about the other one earlier. This one has Missile Torpedo. You would think, oh, Keen, shouldn't the Missile one be higher up? Because it's easier to win with Missile than Hammer. When you're new, not really. I don't, like, on the context of these weapons, because with Missile, it's like, you can hold forward and aggress, but Goo Tuber's not really the greatest weapon for that. And, like, Torpedo's, like, cool, I guess, but again, the Torpedo doesn't really synergize with how, like, charge time works on the weapon. And again, like, these are so close, I think it's, like, kind of negligible, but I do think, like, Hammer is, like, a better X Factor in solo than just, like, Missile on a weapon that can't really like hold forward. So it's a Goo Tuber. We talked about its faults. I'm not gonna like spend too much time on it, to be quite honest, but I will spend time to tell you H3 in this game is really not good. It's a semi-auto like Squeezer, and I talked about Squeezer's privileges and all that fun stuff. H3 is more akin to you shoot and then you're stuck in end lag for a bit, and you know, H3 is fully accurate when jumping and standing, so that's pretty cool. That's a pretty good perk. It paints really cleanly, it paints really well, that's another good perk, that's awesome. But the combination of just like exploitable frame data and really mediocre in this kit, so, you know, I'm not even like, you know, let's talk about both at the same time basically, because yeah, these kits are really difficult to win with like kind of like flawed mediocre-ish main weapon that has like good perks, but like no, it doesn't really offer you enough for your team, and it's not like a solo like god kill link weapon. I think it's on like the lower end in this game for sure. Just it's not beginner friendly, it's not easy to win with, it's not great in comp, it's just like it kind of goes in this like corner-ish area, because again, like I don't think it's really a good pick outside of just like for funsies, to be honest. This one's point sensor cooler, which does offer your team more value, and I value it a little bit more because of that. This one has Splash Wall Bubble, which is like, wow, so much HP, but it's not really threatening inside of a bubble. This is an H3 with no bomb. And survivability is like, yeah, that's cool, but it's not like actually super threatening, because like, yeah, the weapon's accurate and can kill in like one burst and all that, but it's like, it's so linear in the way that it plays, and it like lacks some like crazy factor to make you respect it. So it's just like, I don't really know how to word it outside of just telling you to go play H3, and it's like, oh, you have all these good traits, but then you actually play the game, like, because on paper it's like, oh, this sounds crazy, and then you play it, it's like, this kind of sucks. Yeah, I don't have a crazy opinion of H3. I would not recommend it if you're new or experienced, to be honest. Let's talk about something else. Heavy Edit. It's a Splatling. I think it's pretty decent in solo queue for sure. It has not the craziest range, it's like okay range. I guess the defining thing about this Splatling is its charge time is a bit slower, but it gets a really large amount of bullets in its clip, which is like kind of like Hydra, which we'll get to shortly. This is going to be a lot of Splatling discussion, and this just because Heavy Edit, Heavy Deco, and Hydra. That's 4 at least. Kind of weird to talk about Heavy Edit first, or Heavy, because I have Heavy here, but yeah. Heavy Edit has a longer charge time, but you have more bullets per clip or whatever. Cooler's nice on it, the mobility's cool, especially the ink res, the QSJ, all that's pretty cool. Curling's kind of whatever on it. I'm not a big fan of curling on it, like it's like okay, but nothing like crazy. because it does have that aforementioned charge time, so I don't think it like super synergizes with curling outside of niche scenarios where you need to like run away, and, like don't have cooler or like quickly approach an area. I suppose like it's just kind of a whatever sub for it. You know, it's like an okay cooler weapon. I think it's pretty good in solo queue because you can kind of just bully a lot of the weapons that are shorter range and you can kind of just run at them. Not like literally, but you know, they have to respect you. That's really what I'm getting at. Yeah, you have to get used to the charge times on this because again, it's a little bit like less beginner friendly than something like Heavy as a main weapon, but I definitely think it's like not better per se because like Heavy does have more range than this, I'm pretty sure, by a little bit. But you know, Heavy it's like okay, it's all right. I might be biased. Maybe it's like further to like here. Okay, so gonna break the illusion of the video for a second, depending upon how I sound or not, because two things compared to you know like a minute ago. Continuing this basically. One, I'm recording this on a different day than the first part, so if I sound a little bit different, that's why. Second thing, I'm sick right now, so again, double if I sound off or strange, I'm sorry, but I am sick right now. But I do want to continue recording this, so you know, apologies if it's a bit weird or if my inflection's a bit different or energy or whatever, that's why. But yeah, we're gonna continue this. Talk about the Heavy Splatling. I think I mentioned this in the last part, that I think Heavy is a bit of an easier main weapon to play than Edit because its charge time isn't as long, and you know, its duration of fire isn't as long because of that, but it's a bit easier to understand. It's very simple. When you charge with Heavy, it has two rings. The first ring charges slower than the second. The more you charge, the more bullets you get. Simple as that. It's a 4-shot weapon. It has Sprinkler, it has Wave Breaker. The kit's really not that great, especially because I mentioned it in the last part. Wave Breaker is not particularly strong right now, so it's not crazy. I remember having fun with this in the early days of the game. But part of that was the first golden special badge I ever farmed. Actually, that's still the only golden special badge I have as of recording this video, even like a year later. Yeah, I first started Heavy in that time, and you know, it's neat, but when it comes to the kind of games where you have to, you know, make crazy plays and actually win, pretty much all that comes down to the main weapon. It's not a bad main weapon by any means, don't get me wrong, but there's no crazy X factor. I know I keep going back to that term, and I swear I say it for every Wave Breaker weapon, but especially in the case of this, when you have Sprinklers or sub, there's nothing too crazy about it. It's not the hardest to learn. There's a curve for sure, but I kind of put it in the middle because it's not a very strong weapon. It's not a bad weapon. It's kind of just very middling. It's okay. It's perfectly fine. It's really the best way I can describe it. I have Heavy Deco a bit further on the left. Maybe that's a little bit too far to the left, honestly, but again, the placements aren't meant to be perfect or anything. It's just meant to be kind of a general vibe more than anything. This kit is point sensor plus Krak-On. So unlike the OG kit, it has a means of kind of pushing and extending. The one thing is this falls into kind of the boat I talked about with Bloblobber Deco last time, where you don't want to overextend with the Krak-On toward the end of the special because you have a charge time weapon, so you're quite vulnerable if you overextend with this. So it does limit it in that sense, but Krak-On on Heavy actually has pretty good synergy. Point sensor is cool to, you know, just get general information, especially if you're trying to find if someone's like sharking or there's someone that you can't hit with your main weapon. You know, it's good information. It's a cheap sub. I like the point sensor on this. I like the point sensor on the remix from Splatoon 2, which had Booyah Bomb as a special. Yeah. Kind of a straightforward weapon. Nothing too crazy. I do think Heavy Deco is probably, generally speaking, a little bit stronger than regular Heavy, so, you know, if you like messing with Heavy, I would recommend you try Deco for sure. Also, it's bedazzled, like 96 Deco, so that's pretty cool. Let's talk about extreme weapon design. Hydra Splatling. So another Splatling, in a more extreme example than Edit. The thing with Hydra is its charge time is the slowest of any Splatling in the game, and it's a heavyweight weapon. And I always talk about this on my streams. I'm not a huge fan of Hydra and just generally seeing it because it's such an extreme design where the charge time is so much longer and yeah, the duration of fire is crazy. And what makes this one different compared to other Splatlings is pretty much, I'm trying to think off the top of my head. I think every Splatling in the game is a 4-shot. Because yeah, Mini's a 4-shot, Heavy's a 4-shot, Heavy Edit's a 4-shot, Nautilus is a 4-shot. Don't think I'm forgetting anything. Hydra's also a 4-shot, except if you charge both rings, it's also the 2-ring principle I talked about with Heavy. If you charge both rings, it becomes a 3-shot, which it sounds pretty cool, and it has a crazy rate of fire and has some of the highest DPS in the game. but that comes with the big asterisk next to it of you need to actually charge, and this weapon's charge time is really, really slow, and it's a heavy weapon, it's clunky. I really do like the kit on this. It has Booyah Bomb, which is great to help this weapon, you know, kind of survive, because the downside of this thing is, you know, the crazy startup you have to deal with is kind of a big problem, especially as you know, fight like faster paced weapons or people with a bunch of bombs or throw a bunch of specials at you. Basically, if you throw stuff at the Hydra to displace it and not let it play the game, it feels really bad. But if you're fighting a bunch of like baby guns with things like curling that don't actually threaten you, this thing can feel really broken. So it's kind of just like that kind of weapon design where it can look really good, but it also looks like the worst thing ever. So it's kind of like that. I don't think it's super beginner friendly because, you know, you need an understanding of, you know, how to compensate and deal with all those kind of weaknesses. You know, mainly the charge time, how easy it is to disrupt this weapon. So I don't think it's beginner friendly in that sense. You need to get really good with partials to make this weapon sort of function. And when I say partials, I mean, you know, only going for partial charges. You know, half a ring. You know, understanding how many bullets you need in a certain scenario, especially if someone's like rushing you and you have like basically no charge, you know, just charging up a little bit, you know, put out like 5 bullets, you know, hopefully kill them with that sort of thing. Yeah, not a big fan on this. I wouldn't really recommend this if you're new, because, you know, you might play it and have that one game I mentioned where it's like you're fighting a bunch of short-range weapons. Wow, this is so broken. And then you start fighting people with a million, you know, bombs to throw at you and just like Zookas and triple ink strikes and booyahs and all that fun stuff. Yeah, it gets rough with this weapon, so not super recommended for beginners IMO. Let's talk about Inkbrush. I was a big fan of this weapon when the game first dropped. Not as much these days. That's more just my personal like perception changing and what I enjoy in a weapon. I still think it's really fun. I really do like this weapon. The kit Splat Bomb plus Whale, which is incredible on paper. It has a really cheap whale at 180. Inkbrush paints super duper well in a short range radius. The main thing with this weapon is it's kind of a rat in the sense of you kind of force the flow of the game in a certain way just because you can kind of like, how would I describe this? I don't want to say cheat because it's not the right word really. You kind of ignore some of the ways that this game goes because you can kind of just hold the button and like drag stick, and it's a bait for like low level players, and there are a lot of like low level ink brushes that kind of just like fall for that meme to an absurd degree. And like, don't get me wrong, that's how you play Inkbrush, but not completely, because its burst paint and short range is also like some of the best in the game. So you can easily like farm 8-9 specials with this thing. It's crazy. I don't think it's the easiest thing to learn because you have to learn to balance, you know, when to drag stick versus actually just like paint spamming and all that sort of deal. And I don't think Whale's like the most intuitive special if you're new, which is like, it's a good means to like try and approach and like close the gap on your enemy. What I like about this with Spot Bomb Whale is you can kind of throw a bomb to make someone move and then like pop your whale to make them keep moving, and then you have your ink refill from the whale and you can throw another bomb, and you can kind of like checkmate people in those sort of ways, which is pretty fun and cool. It is an extremely short range weapon, so that will kind of be its struggle sometimes. You do need to go for those kind of crazy plays sometimes, but you also need to like kind of balance it, so it's a bit tricky. I also have it further down because there is the mechanical barrier, because it has a decently fast fire rate, but you know, it's a brush, you need to mash for that, and it's the highest amount of mashing you're going to do at any brush in the game that we're going to talk about, so I do think that's kind of a barrier. Honestly, if you're new though, and you're playing like modes like Clown Blitz, you're probably going to get a lot of mileage out of this thing. Not the most beginner friendly thing, and I wouldn't like personally super recommend as your number one, because it's kind of one of those weapons like Blob where I feel like it can develop bad habits for you if you're new, but it does have a lot of fun aspects that I think once you kind of get a better understanding of the game, there's a lot to improve with. So in that sense, it's really fun. The all-kit Inkbrush Nouveau, I'm not personally huge on this. I understand it's like a solo queue demon, and when I say that, I mean it's a kind of weapon when you play in a controlled environment, it kind of goes down a lot. But in solo queue, you know, a lawless land with no communication amongst teammates, this thing is absolute nightmare. Because it has Ink Mine, but the big thing is it has Hammer on a weapon that can kind of just like ignore rules of the game, get behind people. So it kind of gets away with a lot of stuff that it might not necessarily should be able to. So, you know, if that's your playstyle, you like going behind people with brush, maybe this one might suit you a bit better than the original, where you kind of like play a tempo where you kind of farm whales go in sometimes. Yeah, this one you kind of just slap on QR and do your like drag stick kind of nonsense. And it's really fun in that sense, I can't deny it. And I am a fan of it, you know. Even if I wish I had alternate kits on this, because I really like the Inkbrush Nouveau in Splatoon 2, which had Baller. I think Baller synergized fantastically with the main weapon. I think it was kind of a bit more fun than this one to me, but you know, I can't deny this is going to be one of those weapons you're going to see it in solo queue sometimes, and it's going to like roll over your team and keep going behind you for like the 8th time that game, and you can't believe that your teammate hasn't caught on to that by then or whatever. But yeah, kind of funny. Again, not the most beginner friendly, but kind of neat. Speaking of not beginner friendly, let's talk about bow. From a competitive standpoint, this weapon sees like very, very little usage. It is very difficult to play, and it's not really the kind of weapon where it's like, oh, it's really difficult, but it's worth the investment. IMO, it's not really. Because it kind of just struggles against fights with other anchors, and the general tempo that it plays at and the charge speed that it has. Like, it feels like it plays too slow for this game, really, especially once you like go to those higher levels of gameplay. Like, it doesn't really keep pace. And it's really difficult because I talked about with Splatling, you need to know like your partials and your full charges and all that. But it's kind of like that because the arrow spread tightens the more that you charge it, but the charge is like not the fastest thing in the world. So you need to understand kind of, you know, how many arrows do I need to hit on this guy? If this guy's at full health, I need to hit all 3, but if I want to hit all 3, I need to charge basically all the way. And then, you know, the aiming can be kind of rough, and you need to know stage geometry. And the arrows, you know, when you do a level 1 charge, which is one of the 2 rings, or a full charge, the arrows actually land on the floor and then they explode. And that's cool. That's like the fun nuances of the weapon. But it's kind of just not really worth it, at least right now when like current patches still learn this. And it's not solo queue friendly because it's a weapon that requires like very particular kinds of teammates and particular kinds of comps. And I know if you're going to pick this, you're going to get frustrated because it's going to feel like you can't run at people, you can't really make like game-winning plays in like an aggressive sense, because this is the kind of weapon that just sits in the back, you know, and that's not inherently wrong. You know, the weapons that do that are perfectly good, some of them, but I don't think bow is really one of them. The kit on this is Sprinkler's Chump. It's kind of just, yeah, you'll get like 2600 paint with this, but it's really becoming a question of like, does that really do a lot, you know, comparing to like more rounded weapons or weapons with more immediate like potency factor. You know, I'm not huge on bow. I just think you know, I'm particularly talking in this video about if you're new. I think if you're new, like, you might want to play like, oh, this is the weapon on the box art, I want to play that. You know, feel free, I'm not telling you not to. But if you're playing, you know, and with the intent of like, I want to improve or get better, or, you know, learn more about the game, like win my matches, or get X rank or whatever, I really don't recommend this one. And, you know, spoilers for later, I don't remember where it is. Reg bow is pretty much down here too, because it's extremely difficult to play. Like A and B, it's just like, it's not solo queue friendly, and C, it's not very strong, so yeah, not a great pick. Conversely, we have Vanilla Jet, which is, you know, the most basic of the anchorish kind of weapons that we talked about. This one has Angle Shooter Vac. It's probably received some of the most buffs in this game, just because it's Angle Shooter receiving a lot of buffs, and that got a couple buffs. Still not a crazy weapon, just kind of funny how much Angle Shooter got buffed. Because when I think of Angle Shooter, I think of this weapon, honestly. Yeah, I don't know. It's a basic kit that exists, I suppose. If you're playing an anchorish weapon, you want to fill the vac role, and you kind of just want to play a point-and-click adventure for your crossfiring for your teammates. V-Jet's not really that bad. Again, it's not really the kind of weapon that can hold forward because kill time isn't crazy. I mean, it is a shooter at the end of the day, so, you know, it's more flexible than other anchors in a lot of those senses, but, you know, if you want to have high vac output, and you think Angle Shooter's funny, and you like comboing with Angle Shooter, you know, hitting 2 bullets with the main weapon to 64 damage on this, because 32 per bullet doesn't mean no fall off. Barker can combo with that, it's pretty funny. You know, I get a giggle out of playing this every now and again. You know, honestly, I have it up here and 96 down here. I'm too lazy to swap it out because I don't want to go back to the 96. I think this one could actually go further down on easy to learn, because Angle Shooter has like a lot of potential nuance in terms of comboing. Like, this is a lot more basic to play. You know what? No, I think, yeah, I'll put this like here. I don't want to overlap too much on this list. Yeah, pretty. Oh, that's weird. I wonder what is... I don't know what that is. Strange. Yeah, I don't know what that bit was. Yeah, I'm not gonna move it, whatever. This is just visual. If you're just listening to this, it just sounds like I'm like going crazy. Yeah, it actually probably is a bit more difficult than 96 in terms of the kit, specifically angle shooter, but yeah, if you like VAC, but you kind of get frustrated by 96's general inaccuracies, I'd probably recommend Jet. Pretty cool. Let's go to Krak-On Roller over here. Did I talk about Swig Roller yet? No, that'd be Splat Roller alphabetically. Okay, so Roller was one of the ones that was kind of struggling, because I think it's the kind of weapon where some aspects of it when you're new to the game feel really, really, really strong, but some aspects, as you get better, can feel kind of difficult. And what I mean by that is, like, it feels like you can kind of get away with a lot more when you're playing with, like, newer players or whatever. And I feel like that's especially true with, like, Roller. Like, you could just have, like, the most, like, linear kind of, like, flowchart gameplay of just, like, sit in a spot, the guy is not gonna, like, paint over it or scout it or whatever, and you're just gonna, like, horizontal and get a kill. I feel like Krak-On Roller is, like, an extreme design. Not like Hydra in terms of main weapon, just, like, in terms of... it gets away with so much more when the opponent doesn't know how to deal with it. It has beacon plus Kraken, beacon chain, like, how do you describe this? On paper, this weapon has, like, absolutely terrible neutral, and it struggles to paint, it struggles to move because you don't have curling like the original Roller kit. And, you know, you can go in with Kraken, sure, but building that with Roller is not amazing because it doesn't paint that well. So, like, in theory, it doesn't have a lot of, you know, tools to enable itself. It's more just, like, if its teammates win a fight, it gets an advantage, the map gets painted in its color, it puts down beacons. It feels really, really obnoxious. But also, if it gets thrown into its spawn, it's, like, comedically bad. So it's kind of like that weapon. Yeah, it's a really difficult weapon to gauge because it definitely is, like, better at lower level. It's not that it's, like, the worst weapon ever, but it's, like... it's very particular in what it does and what it wants. So you're gonna feel like the best weapon ever and also the worst weapon ever with this thing. But if you want a Roller that's more rounded, where you can enable yourself better while also maintaining that sort of, like, crazy potency offensive factor, I think the Swig Roller is, like, better, so I'll talk about that when we get to it. But yeah, the other one's, like, more self-sufficient, which I think if you're new to the game, you kind of rather have, because, you know, Kraken's fun and Beacon can be fun. But also, being able to move in this game kind of matters a little bit more. You know, I feel like most people would think that, so kind of a tricky weapon to rank, honestly. I don't think I'd be happy regardless of, like, where I put it. It's kind of just there. Let's talk about L3. L3 is not quite a shooter, but it's a semi-auto, which I guess is a subclass of shooter. As opposed to normal shooters where, you know, you just hold the button to be shooting. L3 you have to, like, tap once, and it's not like some, like, crazy squeezer level of, like, one tap equal one bullet. No, when you tap once with L3, you get a little burst, and the burst has 3 bullets. And they do 29 damage each, so it requires, like, more than one shot to kill from full health. But its turn is really good. Its strafe is really good, honestly, for a shooter, especially if you have, like, run speed. Its painting is excellent. That's one of its, like, defining traits. And it's also really ink efficient, even after a nerf that happened too with that. So it's generally just a pretty rounded weapon that's pretty good. The deal with this is it has Curling Bomb Crab, and it can easily output, you know, 7, 8, 9 crabs a game. So that's pretty strong by itself, but its general history in this game has been it's pretty outclassed by Splash, which, you know, also has crab, but a way better sub than Curling. You know, L3 is not bad. I would definitely say it's less beginner friendly just because of that weird, like, shooter not shooter but it has end lag, and the burst is kind of awkward. Like, tracking with the burst is kind of weird because with, you know, a normal shooter you kind of hold the button and just, like, point and click, but L3 is like you gotta point and click, but if you move the camera and you did a burst, you know, maybe one of the bullets doesn't land, so it's a little weird in that sense. But it's most certainly, like, a million times more self-sufficient than H3 due to, you know, it has less range and it doesn't have a lack of jump accuracy, because jumping with this will decrease your accuracy by a fair bit. Not a ton, but a decent bit. It's definitely more self-sufficient and solo queue friendly for sure. And that rings especially true of L3D kit, which, you know, in theory, it's strange. It's a trade-off with these kits, because this one is Curling Crab, but this one has Burst Bomb, which is like the best sub you could put on L3 ever, but it has Hammer. So it's kind of weird, because Burst Hammer sounds kind of crazy, but the way this weapon plays is it does outrange stuff like Splattershot, so you want to play at a range where you kind of just like comfortably outrange that, but then Hammer is a close range special. So it's kind of weird. You're really good at painting, but farming Hammer isn't like the strongest thing to farm ever. But also I think having Burst and Hammer makes it better in solo queue, if that makes sense. Like Vanilla L3 is kind of outclassed, but L3D is like not really outclassed per se. You know, Mini has the same kit as this, which alphabetically I guess we'll get to later. But yeah, it's kind of awkward because you have so many tools with L3D, but it doesn't, you know, it's still kind of tricky to play. But also when it feels good, it feels really good. But you know, it's also really mediocre. Like it's such a weird weapon to gauge because it's not common for good reason, because it's not particularly amazing, but it's not bad either. It's kind of just one of those weird like middling sort of weapons. I mean, you might have fun with it if you're new and you don't really like the charge time of Mini, because you know, you're trading off charge time, or more so just having like a little bit of end lag. But you know, it's alright. That's not the worst weapon for a beginner, but it might be a little bit weird transitioning to other weapons, or to transition from other weapons onto L3, because again, just that weirdness of, oh, I have a little bit of end lag, or oh, my bullets are a little bit, you know, weirder than like a normal shooter. But you know, it's okay. You could do worse in terms of picks. Like this thing. Yeah, that thing. I talked about this in the last part with Tetra, how it's, you know, the kind of weapon that wants to fight all the time, right? And how Reef Slider, you know, might get you killed, but you can get a lot of value from it, and Autobom's great for poking. This kit is Sprinkler, which is a painting sub, which is kind of counterintuitive on a weapon that wants to fight, not a great fit. For sure. But you might be thinking, oh, it has Zipcaster, that's like an aggressive special, yeah? And it's like, yeah, there's some kind of neat things you can do with Zipcaster, but the trade-off of having no bomb is not really great, and to get Zipcaster you kind of need to be painting a bit. And with Tetra, a lot of the time, even if you're like winning your fights, a lot of them sort of result in trades. And its paint is only okay, so it's not really known to farm special. And you might be going like, oh, well, that's what the Sprinkler's for, right? I'm like, yeah, kinda. I get what you mean by that, but yeah, I don't think this is a particularly amazing weapon. It's still a Tetra at the end of the day, so you can be a menace just from out-mechanicking and fighting people alone, don't get me wrong. But I also think it's harder to win with, because Zipcaster is a really difficult special to use. Like, honestly, I'd probably put this like further down, like here. Maybe a little bit more than Dark Tetra, because Dark Tetra is a bit more self-explanatory, but Zip on a main weapon, kind of its quirkiest Tetra, is definitely not beginner-friendly, I feel, and when you don't have a sub to fall back on to, like, you know, just be a bomb and pressure the enemy, it can feel kind of weird. The tempo of the weapon can be kind of confusing, I feel. Yeah, I don't super recommend it for beginners. It's definitely a for fun gun, and when I say that, I mean, I think it's fun to play, but I don't think it's, like, the best if you're like playing it and trying to like seriously consider how do I win, if that makes sense. It's not like the worst weapon ever, but I definitely don't think it's like wrong. So kind of a weird weapon. But if you want to flip from that to weapons that are more mechanically simple, Luna Blaster. It's kind of funny this is after Light Tetra because it also has Zipcaster. And if you listen to me talk about the carbon part, I feel like a lot of what I say is really, really relevant here, because I kind of have a similar issue, where Luna's an extremely easy main weapon to learn. It's a blaster, it has decent frame data. For that, it's a lightweight. It has Spot Bomb, which is one of the best subs you can have. Spot Bomb synergizes with Luna. And it has a Zipcaster, and you might be thinking the carbon thing of, oh, it's good in short range, so Zipcaster should be good, right? But it kind of has that problem, where because it's so short range, you need to be really linear with Zipcaster with it, because your effective range is super short. So it can kind of get pre-fired a lot. You know, people will shoot at you first, or just walk backwards, or kind of walk sideways. Basically all the problems of carbon apply here. where you need to be extremely close to one-shot, but then if you're not going to one-shot them, you need to two-shot them, and the kill time on that's not great. And, you know, most, not even most, just decent players in general will not really let you do that for free with Luna. And its paint isn't like the worst thing ever, but you're not going to be building a lot of zip casters. So the thing with Luna is it's really basic, but I think it kind of lacks a true win condition in terms of the special and all that. So I'd actually say if you're new, I'd recommend Luna Neo more, because you have Hammer, and Hammer kind of makes more sense. You know, it's a little bit redundant in some senses with Luna, but, you know, Luna's a shorter range weapon, so Hammer makes a bit more sense to me in that. And it's not even like the Tetra thing where you're trading away your bomb for a special that kind of makes sense on it. It's like, no, you're still Fizzy Bomb, which is actually really good on a weapon like this. I feel like if you're newer, like Luna Neo is actually kind of a filter weapon where a lot of people can't deal with you. So if you're new, I think this is really strong, honestly. And I think synergistically it just makes more sense than this kit. Because again, you'll get away with Hammer plays sometimes. I think that makes it a bit easier to win with than having to, you know, play 40 chess with Zipcaster only to realize the guy walked backwards for the 50th time this week. And that, you know, there reaches a point where it's realizing maybe it's not a me problem on Luna and Zipcaster. Maybe Zipcaster is not crazy on Luna, because it's not really. That's a hard pill to swallow, because on paper it sounds really good and fun, but in practice, no, Zipcaster on Luna ain't it. Honestly, I'd recommend playing Neo. Already got the mini. Oh, this a bit before I foreshadow. It's really close to Vanilla L3 for a reason. Yeah, or not Vanilla L3, my bad. L3D. Because Vanilla Mini and L3D have the same kit of Burst Bomb plus Hammer. And it kind of has a similar issue with L3D, maybe even a bit more so on Mini, honestly. Where Mini kind of wants to play a painting game and like outrange a lot of the short range stuff. So it kind of sits at like the tip of its range a lot of the time against some weapons. Like you don't want to run up on people like that because you're just going to trade 52s and shots and stuff like that, and that's not pretty. Because with Mini, it has crazy strafe speed if you're wearing run speed. So you want to abuse that. And Burst Bomb is crazy on Mini. But Hammer doesn't really synergize super duper well with it. I feel like Hammer makes more sense on L3D by a little bit than Mini. Though I do think Mini's a little more beginner friendly. Though L3 might be a little... Actually no, I don't even know, because I wasn't even thinking about the fact Mini main weapon got buffed a ton. Particularly the ink efficiency thing. And the built-in MPU. Yeah, maybe... No, actually no, yeah, because I think the kit for aggression purposes makes more sense on L3D, but the main weapon is more self-sufficient on Mini because it has some of the best paint in the game. It has really good ink efficiency, it has great strafe, and decent duration of fire ever since that one buff. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, they have the same kit. They play kind of sort of similarly. I think them being, you know, relatively close to one another. It's sort of like the Dapple Empry thing, where it kind of just feels like two, like a split, where it's the same kit and like a different weapon, but not so different that it's drastically gonna affect their placement. I think these are kind of like different main weapon, but the way they play is like not too dissimilar from one another. So I think a lot of what I said with L3D kind of applies to Mini. Let's talk about Zap 85. Been a minute. Well, actually, no, that's a lie, because we just talked about Luna. I was going to say it's been a minute since you've been in the top left. That's just not true. But N-Zap is a really basic weapon that was really popular even in Splatoon 1, I feel like, amongst newer and more casual players. And I can't tell if that's because they like the gun or haha, it's a reference to the N-Zap in real life. Wow, haha. But it's a basic shooter. It's a 4-shot, it's a lightweight, it has really good movement, really good strafe, really good ink efficiency, and it has Suction Bomb. You know, a rounded, easy to understand main weapon with one of the better subs in the game. I can see why it's popular here, for sure. It still is. And it has Tacticooler, and it's easily top 3 Tacticooler weapon in the game right now, because we don't have a ton of great options for that. So yeah, really easy to understand why a lot of people like this weapon. It's sort of that, like, air quotations support. You know, I don't like throwing that word because some people like misuse it like horribly in regards to this game. But you know, it's a shooter that doesn't have to play like the most aggressive in the world to get value for its team, and it's pretty easy to understand. You know, easy to learn. Cooler is a good enabler of a lot of things, so it's pretty easy to win with as well. If you're new to the game and you're kind of just wanting to get the vibe of the game, I think NZAP is pretty dang good for that. And we have the alt kit 89. It has auto bomb instead of suction bomb, and it has super chum. I think it's... I don't remember, why did I put it lower in terms of easier to learn? I guess with Cooler, it's like the timing and placements of Cooler come with experience on the game, but there's not a mechanical facet to placing Cooler, and there isn't a mechanical aspect to placing down super chump with this thing either. But I guess with chump it requires more experimentation to understand how the balloons land on some maps, because the indicator isn't really the perfect way to kind of describe that. A little bit harder to win with, I feel. The super chump, it's okay, but the way that this kit is designed to like screams turf war to me. Sort of like how I talked about Spellchi being good in turf war. I feel like their intention with this sort of just, it's good in turf war. It paints a lot. You can get 2600 paint, and that's cool and all. It's still a zap, it's basic. It's easy to understand. But I feel like not quite as good as this kit in terms of trying to win. Just because, again, Cooler's just like the enabler special ever. So it's really good in that sense. But I feel like with this one, you're kind of forced to take some fights, and your trades aren't going to be as good. Or your aggressive tendencies, maybe, because you don't have Cooler to kind of like offset the times you do die. So when you die with this, it feels a bit more punishing, I suppose. Yeah, 89 is also really good for beginners. I'd recommend it. Let's talk about Nautilus, which is this circular-looking weapon over here. Actually, before I do that, I'm gonna get water, because, again, I am sick right now, and I can definitely feel it. Okay, so Nautilus is a weapon that I think is a bit tricky to learn, because it is a Splatling, but it has a unique mechanic amongst the weapon class, being that of charge holds. And, you know, as opposed to Goo Tuber being over here with the charge hold mechanic, you might be immediately thinking, if you're new and don't know a ton about this game. Keen, what makes this different than Goo Tuber? That charge hold doesn't work on Goo Tuber, it works on Nautilus. Charge hold on Charger, you get one shot. Charge hold on a Splatling, you're charging up amount of bullets you fire. So with Nautilus, if you charge to a certain extent, you know, let's say hypothetically you have 30 bullets, you can hold that position in such a way, you know, pop up, start shooting, kill 2 people, it's a 4-shot kill, so let's say you killed 2 people, you know, perfectly would be able, let's be realistic. If you took 20 bullets out of the 30 to kill them, you could go back to swimming and still have the amount of charge for 10 bullets. And with this weapon, you can recharge on top of the amount of bullets you have already. So it's not like an all or nothing like Goo Tuber, where once you let go of the shot, you're back to 0%. It's sort of like a meter with Nautilus, so that makes it, you know, intrinsically so much better. It also has insane shot velocity, which means the amount of time it takes for the weapon, or the bullets to travel from your weapon to the maximum range is extremely fast. It's one of the fastest in the game. Not like Hydra tier, but it's like pretty damn up there. So that's really good. And yeah, the main weapon is a little bit of a mechanical, what's the word? It's a little bit confusing at first, because the amount of the inputs you have to do for it might be a little like confusing at first. It'll be like, oh, I want to swim, but oh, I want to charge hold, or oh, I want to let go of swim and start shooting, but then keep my charge hold and then swim like this, but I want to squid roll like this. It can be a little confusing at first, for sure. That's why I kind of have it a little bit like further down in terms of it's a bit harder to learn. But in terms of the main weapon, it is so incredible at just punishing pretty much anything shorter range than it, especially in a solo queue environment. Because you just point and click at the guy, basically, as long as you have the charge. And, you know, its strafe speed isn't as crazy as something like Mini. You'd still like to run speed and swim speed on this, particularly swim speed, because this weapon will reposition a lot. But, you know, you can do the Splatling thing, where you sit behind a wall, you charge some bullets, see a guy fighting your teammate, you swim over there, you pop up with your charge hold, you go, boom, you get them. Then you still have bullets for the next guy, you can go back to charging, or you can just reposition somewhere else. Just the general flow of the weapon is really good at just punishing people that don't know that you're about to, like, laser them, basically. That's really good. The thing with this weapon is its kit really isn't, like, the greatest thing ever. It's not horrible, but it's not amazing. It has Point Sensor Inkstorm. Inkstorm's kind of cool, because you can sort of use that, like, bubble range, I suppose. Or, like, threat bubble, that's a better term. because Rain's a circle hitbox in terms of where it spawns. And Not has really good damage values in terms of bullet, because it's a 4-shot, yeah, but it has 32 damage per bullet, if I'm not mistaken, like Jet Squelcher, and because of the combination of that with the insane bullet velocity it has, if someone's standing in the rain circle, you can basically 3-shot them, so that's really good. You like that a lot. And Censor's kind of cool, I guess, because it helps you expose people that are sharking, because one thing Nautilus does struggle with is if you're caught without a charge or someone shoots at you first, it can be a little bit awkward, especially if you're not like ready to immediately turn around at them. It's not really good at trading, even if you shoot at them first, but you obviously need to know that the guy is there. And it's Splatling, and you have no bomb, you need line of sight to actually kill people, all that. So, Censor's okay. It's not amazing, it's not the worst, it's kind of just there. But yeah, crazy main weapon. Maybe not the most beginner friendly, but like even if you're new to the game, if you put the time to like understand how the weapon works on a mechanic level, you'll just like laser and shred and delete everyone that is like your range or shorter, and that's crazy. So in terms of easy to win, if you learn this thing, like you're gonna be farming your way to X real fast. That's all I'm gonna say. Mostly because main weapon play, it's not really the kit so much. Yeah, no, like easily one of the better main weapons in the game. Honestly, looking forward to the gold variant whenever that comes out, because gold variant could easily just uke like all the way to the left of the chart if it's good. Let's talk about Neo Splash. Oop, not the layer. This weapon right here. Definitely not as good as its or I say counterpart when this is a counterpart to the original kit. I suppose this is the downside of doing the list kind of alphabetically, because I really want to talk about the good variant that defined the game for like half a year, or like more than. Not to say this one's bad, it's not. Splashmatic, crazy main weapon. It's short range, it has perfect accuracy, kind of like Squeezer, in H3. It's a lightweight shooter, it has incredible frame data, incredible ink efficiency. It is incredibly consistent because of those factors, so that's really nice. So if you don't like the sense of like, oh, 52 is really strong, but I get annoyed because I miss bullets sometimes with Splashmatic's up your alley. Like, it's a 4-shot, not a 2-shot. But when you play a weapon like this, you feel very in control of what's happening because everything just makes sense. You remove that RNG factor completely when you play a weapon like this, so if that's your cup of tea, Splash is fantastic. The thing with Splashmatic is it may be a 4-shot and a shooter and all that, but because of short range, and this one has Suction Bomb and Triple Egg Strike, despite being a 4-shot and a shooter, it's kind of a tough world in the short range category in this game because kill times are either really fast or things get outranged. So if you're playing Neo Splash and you're fighting like competent gals or like Zaps, it feels really difficult to kill them sometimes despite your perfect accuracy and all that. Because this guy's gonna have cooler, this guy's got wall, and you gotta burn a bomb to even try and break the wall, and then his kill time's better than you, outranges you. That's tough. So it's definitely not quite as good as fighting as the other variant, but this one you're gonna play a paint spam game, kind of like some of the other weapons I talked about, because Triple Ink Strike plus Suction Bomb plus crazy main weapon paint. You're gonna be paint like 2,500 a game with this sometimes. And that's cool. Triple Ink Strike can be a really good win condition. I haven't talked about it much in this video because I don't think I've had many weapons with Triple Ink Strike to talk about, if any, obviously. This is the first one. This is actually the first Triple Ink Strike weapon I've talked about this whole time. That's insane. There are too many specials in this game, dude. That this is the first one I'm talking about. Okay, well, with Triple Ink Strike, it can be a good win condition, particularly in something like TC, because it can kind of just stagger the enemy on checkpoints to kind of force them to get off temporarily. It's really strong in overtime for obvious reasons. You throw them on the tower and they can't stand there for a period, outside of like crazy exceptions like actual invincibility. Specials or super jumps to camp out the duration, that sort of deal. But yeah, it's a fine weapon if you're new, especially if you're playing Turf War or something fantastic. Like one of the better weapons you could pick, kind of similar to NSF 89 in that sense, I suppose. Pretty good. Definitely beginner friendly. Now we're going to talk about a weapon I don't think is so beginner friendly. It's funny, people get mad at good Stamper players, because in one sense, it does have some dummy stuff it can do that aren't like the most mechanically demanding, but I put it down here not, necessarily because it's the hardest weapon in the game, or it's more like the skill ceiling on this thing, like how good you can get at Stamper as a main weapon is like actual lunacy. This weapon is insane. I could talk about it forever. I'm gonna quite literally have to restrain myself in this video to not talk about it for 10 years, i.e. like an hour just by itself between the two variants. But to break down Stamper, because I feel like it combines a lot of the elements we've talked about so far in terms of weapons. Because Stamper is kind of a weapon that charges but also doesn't charge. It has two modes of fire. It has horizontal and vertical. The horizontal has no charge. It's a wide projectile that does 35 per hit. The vertical has some startup to it because you need a charge for it, but it's a thin vertical projectile that does 70 damage. And those damage values are completely consistent. They don't have fall off like other weapons, but you need line of sight to hit those, right? Because it's a projectile. It's a wide projectile horizontal, vertical projectile vertical. Its kill time is not crazy. And basically the combo you're going to be doing is vertical into horizontal, and the reason for that is the horizontal has pretty much like very little startup, but it has not considerable end lag, but it has a decent amount of end lag on the horizontal. So yeah, you can kill with 3 horizontals, but the kill time on that isn't the greatest in this game. But vertical has the startup is all there because it takes a second to charge, but it has virtually no end lag. So, 9 out of 10 times, maybe 8 out of 10, maybe I'm exaggerating, you're going to be doing vertical into horizontal. But it's also kind of tricky, because you need a balance between those two modes and understanding when the vertical is good, when the horizontal is good. A lot of this weapon is, maybe more so vertical, for sure, but there are times, to use horizontal. So you're kind of playing that juggling act with that, between the two modes. But it's also kind of weird, because I mentioned they're projectiles, so they will get cut off by geometry to some degree, so you need to understand that. Say you hit a vertical on someone, but then you do a horizontal. But the problem is, your horizontal is such a wide hitbox, you might hit the wall sometimes and it gets blocked. So it's kind of weird, there's nuances in that sense. And on top of that, the weapon range is different between the two modes. The vertical has a decent bit more range than the horizontal. So you might hit the vertical on the guy and then be like, oh, I want to hit the horizontal, but they're too far. So you might need to approach them, swim at them, and then do the horizontal. So there's weird stuff like that. You can also do the inverse, where you do a vertical, and then the person's trying to close the gap on you, you walk backwards to do a horizontal. There's so much cool nuance like that. And, that's not even getting into the fact that the weapon, I'm talking about, 70 damage this, 35 damage this, combo this, combo that. Kill time isn't really the greatest on all that. You might be like, okay, well, why don't you just, run at the guy? When you do a vertical, there's a giant one-hit KO hitbox on top of the blade itself, basically. So yeah, you can't just run up on the weapon and just be like, oh, your kill time's too slow. No, you're gonna die. And the thing with that, I talk about rollers, particularly Carbon, the vertical hitbox under ledges. You can do the Stamper, you can do both under the ledge, obviously, but the vertical is the crazy part if you're standing under a ledge, because that one-hit KO hitbox, if the guy stands at the edge of the ledge, they're gonna die instantly. So you can kind of just sit under corners, sort of like Blaster and Roller, and kind of throw that hitbox in parts of the map that are kind of crazy. And again, this is a 70 damage hitbox, so that's kind of crazy. And there's no RNG with this weapon. It's fully accurate. It's very much like Splash, it's in your hands how to aim. It's more just so the limitations of vertical can hit here, but horizontal can't. That kind of deal. So that's crazy. So, from what I talked about alone, the skill ceiling on this weapon's insane. And, there's a million more nuance I can talk about with this thing. But just basically, you're a weapon that can throw fully accurate, consistent, projectiles to crossfire and damage. And these are really good damage values, by the way. 70 damage is a lot for some big projectile with that much range. Because I haven't talked about numbers of range a lot in this video, because that's kind of the stuff I want you to go for the wiki for if you don't know, or just, look at the lines in game in the training room. But for perspective on how crazy the vertical is on Stamper, in terms of range, it outranges Heavy, which has not the highest range in the game, not even, because Leader and Hydra and Bow have those kinds of ranges. But Heavy is not a short range weapon by any means, and it can't even hit fall off damage at the ranges that this thing is hitting 70 damage. So that's kind of insane. On top of that, Stamper has Dash Slash, which is if you do a vertical charge and you input forward on your control stick, you can kind of dash in a direction. And I say input forward, but it doesn't actually have, that's just for the input. You can dash in any direction you want, really, when you, move your camera. And on top of that, the hitbox, the projectile, and, the Oko hitbox on the vertical don't necessarily have to match the direction you slash either. So you could like dash sideways and throw the hitbox in a completely different direction. And I feel like that's where a lot of, like, not all of the ceiling, but like a decent bit of the ceiling in terms of how good with that weapon you can get is. Because you have these like weird mix-ups. And, you know, so I haven't talked about it a ton because we haven't really gotten to Brawlers, and I don't even know if I mentioned it on Dualies, actually. But when a weapon jumps in this game, like super jumps, some weapons actually just die, like they can't do anything. You know, Hydra, for example. If Hydra jumps in, easy kill, end of story, right? Because of how it operates. Dualies can roll upon, you know, landing, which is, you know, back in S2 was considered some crazy DLC privilege because that was a new concept. Like, wait, I'm shooting the jump and I only hit one bullet, or I hit no bullets and they just rolled sideways and killed me. Yeah. You can apply the dash slash on Stamper to that, as well as Wiper, which we'll get to later because alphabetically it's one of the last. So it's actually kind of hard to punish this weapon on jump in as well. Like, it has a lot of mechanics unique to it that are really, really good. And the weapon does have downsides, you know, it's ink hungry. Again, you need line of sight on people. There is the downside of you're gonna have to deal with the startup frames on vertical to like truly abuse it. Yeah, if you abuse stage geometry with this thing, like there's just so much to learn with this. It's easily my favorite weapon in the game. That's why I'm like trying to not talk about it forever. But I do play Sword amongst the most in this game because again, it's really strong. It's got a lot of nuance, and it's, you know, when something has nuance and it's strong and feels like you can improve a lot with it, that's like my favorite thing. So yeah, I love these things. I haven't even talked about the kit on it. I just hit my desk because I'm losing my mind. The kit on this is Toxic Mist and Crab. Mainly Crab is like the crazy part. Mist is kind of cool sometimes because you can kind of make it easier to hit those kind of hitboxes on people. You know, Mist, slow them down, do a vertical, finish them off with a horizontal, that kind of thing. Mist is really ink hungry. I don't recommend using it a ton. What I will recommend you using it for is kind of throwing it at people if you can before you pop the Crab. Because, have I talked about Crab in this video? Has there been another Crab? Oh my god, I think this is the first Crab we're talking about. Wait, no, Splat Dualie isn't on here. Wait. Oh my god, this is the first Crab I've talked about. This is insane. Okay, so Crab is just big turret mode. It's like it's great. We haven't talked about this stuff. Crab as a special is like if you combine Hydra's crazy rate of fire with Explosher's ability to cheat geometry and do like explosive hitbox around corners. That's the idea, basically. So that's crazy on this, because this weapon, one of its weaknesses is it can't hit people around corners and all that, but the special Crab can kind of do that with the Expo shot on it, so that's good. And the damage values are crazy, because you can combo, you know, your 70 on someone, they might run away, be out of range. You could just pop the Crab and then just hit them and bam, that's a combo, they die. Fantastic. Crab's also crazy on hold, it stalls a lot. You can't really contest it from a straight angle because it's just incredibly threatening the way that, you know, Hydra kind of controls space. It's just a very, very strong special in general. It was like the special for the first like while of this game. And even after the nerfs, I still think it's incredibly strong, like insane, especially in something like Zones. So yeah, really, like one of the strongest specials on one of the strongest main weapons. You know, the fact you have Mist is a downside, sure. But you cannot complain. This is like, there is so much nuance and ways to improve this weapon that I think it's hard to learn and will be overwhelming as a beginner. But it is so much fun, and it is one of the strongest weapons in the game, so I cannot put it like any lower than this in terms of easy to win. Because it might not be like the easiest mechanically to win, but like in terms of the tools you have, like, nah, you got everything. You can win the game. Like, this weapon is the GOAT. It's the GOAT. Yeah, let's talk about the other side of the chart. I talked about this weapon being really hard and it has like all the means to win. It's fantastic. Yeah, let's go the other way. Neo Sploosh. It sucks. It's bad. It's really bad. It's a shooter. It's basic. There's like no nuance. It has beacon. It has whale. Talked about the Dapple thing where it has like no neutral because it has no, you know, ways to fight beyond like a toothpick of range. That applies to Neo Sploosh, except you don't even get rolls with Neo Sploosh, like this weapon. Yeah, this is really bad. Yeah, you can't threaten anyone because of the lack of bomb, and you need special to make anyone move beyond that, like, 2-foot radius. Yeah, this weapon just has no neutral. It's pretty easy to understand what you're doing with it, so it's easy to learn. But it's pretty hard to win, because you'll feel like you just can't do things on your own, and that's kind of just how the kit plays on that. Yeah, this is kind of just a troll weapon. Yeah, that's all I got. Yeah, I talked about Stamper for, I don't even know what that was. I'm not looking at the recording time. That was probably, it's like 5 minutes. Neo Sploosh, yeah, that's my like 30-second. It sucks. Don't play it. I don't recommend it. Please pick something else. Octobrush. I guess I'll talk about Octobrush and Octobrush Nouveau at the same like time, because same main weapon. Generally on this, in terms of, you know, easy to learn, I kind of have a lot of similar variants, kind of not too displaced from each other vertically or not. I do have Octobrush Nouveau a decent bit away vertically, and that's because, let's talk about Octobrush Nouveau first, actually. It has Beacon, so it kind of has the Dapple Neo Swoosh thing where it's really difficult to flush and like threaten people at further ranges, but it has more range in those weapons, and really, really wide big hitboxes. So it's really good at like holding certain areas of the map, you know, like, I haven't talked about maps a ton, because too much to talk about in this game. But, you know, Mako Mart, Sturgeon Shipyard, those kinds of maps when you're like, I want to push this area, and then the brush goes bump, 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 they just mash under control and you die, and you're just like, damn, I knew they were there, but like, there's not much you could do with that, or about that. You know, you've been there. If you played this game at all, you've been there, where a brush is just sitting on a spot and being annoying, right? So it has Beacon, it has Rain. Rain is okay, it's kind of middling, it's not crazy on this thing. It's weird because when I made the initial, you know, first impression analysis thingy for, what was it? Is it Drizzle season? But whatever the September season was in 2023, this weapon dropped. I kind of just said, it's whatever, it's kind of middling, it's not bad, but it's not crazy. I still kind of hold that, but I really don't think it's like that bad. You have Rain, Beacon. Yeah, there's like mechanically it's just so much easier than the other brush, just because those kind of tools don't require some insane nuance the way like Angle Shooter is of caster mode. You have to like galaxy brain to do basic gameplay sometimes. It's because Zipcaster, this one has Zipcaster and Auto Bomb, so you do have a thing to throw, which is good. Or sorry, does it? No, it doesn't have Auto Bomb. It has Suction Bomb. Thinking Vanilla Brush in Splatoon 2 that had Auto Bomb. Yeah, it has Suction Bomb. It's pretty. Am I deranged? No, yeah, it has Suction Bomb. I'm like doubting myself because I haven't played that thing in so long. Yeah, it has Suction Bomb Zipcaster. As opposed to Luna and Carbon, where I kind of complain it's like it doesn't have the range to be a Zipcaster. This might not be the longest range weapon in the game, but it's most certainly like a lot more threatening than these two weapons with Zipcaster, and it's not like a mechanical thing where Carbon has to worry about verticals and spacing and horizontal this, or Luna AoE this or that. No, this weapon, like, you just, if you're in the right range and you're Zipcasting, you kind of just mash it into dude and they explode, so it's simpler in that sense. I do think there's more nuance in terms of the main weapon, because it's a brush, you can drag stick, all that stuff. This kind of weapon is really, I would say it's I'd say this weapon is pretty effective at lower levels of play because people can't aim yet. If you're picking, you know, guns like Aerospray, and there's this dude who doesn't have to aim and then you have to aim, and this guy's got bigger hitboxes than you, it feels really overbearing. It's definitely an obnoxious weapon to fight. I would kind of categorize it in the Inkbrush blob thing, where it's pretty strong if you're a beginner for some reasons, but it might develop like not the greatest habits, you know, particularly aim. So there's that going for it, or I guess against it, I suppose. But it's definitely like a pub stompy, especially when you're a new kind of weapon in solo queue, so you'll probably see success with it. So if you pick it, you know, it's a reason. It's like top left, I think it's quite good for a beginner for reasons like that. Let's talk about the final weapon in the family of, not that. Paintbrush. Kind of funny how a lot of the rollers are kind of are spotted. I didn't even intend it to be as such. Paintbrush is new to Splatoon 3. It's the heavyweight variant of the brush class family. And, you know, you might notice the trend if you're paying attention of like heavyweight equal bad frame data, worse ink efficiency, bigger hitbox, and or more range. And that's correct. I'm glad you're paying attention. Or I've played this game before, because that's no different here. Paintbrush has the worst frame data out of the brush class. I talked about Octobrush having big hitbox you don't need to aim with. Yeah, you take that and amplify it even more. So yeah, its frame data is worse. It has incredible windup on the first swing. But the hitbox size is insane. Like, You know, Gal can get away with killing Octobrush and, like, not trading it sometimes because you have a pretty similar-ish range depending on how it's, like, spaced in your position. Inkbrush range is kind of obscene where you just, like, trade people, like, 96 sometimes, and, you know, it feels wrong. And I can't tell if that's a mix of A, it's new, or B, the weapon got, you know, numerous buffs, one of them being not a range buff, but, like, kind of a range buff where its damage values are better at farther ranges. So it's, like, kind of effectively a range buff. Yeah, this weapon's really good at trading people, but it's an extreme design, kind of like Hydra. Where when you play this, there's, like, two ways it's gonna go. You're gonna fight a bunch of short-range stuff. You're gonna fight, like, N-Zaps and Luna Blasters and Aerosprays and Dapples, especially Dapples. Dapples can't do anything about this thing, actually. If you don't just, like, melt them before they start swinging. That's the first thing. You fight those kind of short-range weapons and you're like, I am big paintbrush. I kill you. Like, you just kill them. They can't exist in your range. It's, like, hilarious. It's so easy. The flip side of that, where it's not so fun, is you fight weapons with more range. You fight heavies. You fight squeezers. You fight stampers. You fight ballpoints using long range. You fight 96 Gal Deco in particular. And it's like, wow, I can't do anything about these guys because they just outrange me, and my frame data is so bad that I can't, like, ever get, like, near them comfortably. Yeah, that's kind of paintbrush. It's a really extreme weapon design. I don't even know how beginner friendly it is, because, you know, by the time this weapon has come into existence, like, I'm not a beginner anymore, so I can't tell you. Like, I'm not playing at those kinds of ranks. But I imagine if you're new, you hate this thing, right? I feel like you gotta hate this thing. I didn't even talk about the kids. Vanilla Paintbrush has Curling Bomb, which is really good on it because weapons mobility is terrible, its frame data is terrible. And yeah, it can drag stick like the other ones, but because the first swing has a lot of wind-up on this weapon, it's not really reliable like the other two. And even then, Inkbrush is, like, clears Octobrush by a mile. It's, like, such a difference in terms of how effective it is. Like, I think the roll speed on this is the same as Octobrush, but it's not that first swing. That first swing has so much wind-up. Yeah, it has curling, which is really good mobility-wise, but it kind of gets weighed down by the fact that it has Wavebreaker. Because, yeah, Wavebreaker can combo with the high damage values this thing has. But again, kind of just one of the weaker specials right now, so not really something you want. And Curling Wavebreaker doesn't really threaten people at further ranges. Again, I talked about it. This weapon bullies anything shorter range than it, but gets extremely bullied by things with more range. Wavebreaker does not help that. Wavebreaker's not going to solve your, like, long range issues at all. But what might solve your long range issues is annoying them, and that's what Paintbrush Nouveau is for. You trade away your Curling Bomb for mobility, you throw that out, you get Point Sensor Missile, so now you'd kind of just farm Missile in this really big bubble radius hitbox thing where it's like, don't approach me in, like, the 2 line of range in this game because I'll kill you. And if you can't deal with something, you throw a Point Sensor at them or you missile them. And honestly, I think that's a fun kit for it. You definitely feel the lack of curling because it's lack of mobility. Like, this is kind of weapon. If you paint its feet and it's not already swinging, bro's dead. Like, bro should be dead. They can't move, like, at all. There's no movement on the Nouveau version without curling. But it's really obnoxious. Definitely an obnoxious weapon design to fight. So yeah, I definitely think it'd be pretty effective if you're new to the game, I would say. Like, you know, the most defined win cons, a lot of your gameplay is going to be relying on, like, kind of just stuffing the opponent out with main weapon kills, which is, you know, some weapons. But particularly this one. Some weapons I've talked about, it's like, oh, the kit is really good, or the main weapon's, like, good enough, and the kit is, like, fantastic. That sort of thing. This is just, like, main weapon filters. Kits are, like, okay. It's that kind of design. Let's talk about something totally different. Let's talk about Range Blaster. This one's been getting kind of popular in terms of discussion lately. Range Blaster is a blaster with range. It's a blaster with more range. That's all I gotta say. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, it's blaster with more range, so it can use its area of effect more effectively, I suppose, than Reg Blaster. Because Reg Blaster kind of has to sit under ledges, but this has so much range that it can poke people, I guess is the word I would use. Like, poke is a common term that I use and many people use to kind of describe when you're using, like, an AoE weapon to kind of, like, threaten an area, especially with, like, rapids, which I'll talk about briefly from now. Oh, I've already been talking for an hour and we're only here. Oh, jeez. It's gonna be a long video. Oh my god. Why am I recording this while sick? This is an awful idea. Where are we? Answer is I like talking about this game and I want to make this video. That's why. But Range Blaster, it has the same property where it's like you can one-shot if you hit someone directly. That's good. Jump RG is bad. That's not so good. You can mitigate it a little bit, even if you jump, if you wait and delay your shot a little bit, because the reticle will start resetting back to a more accurate level, so that's cool. It has Suction Bomb, which is a good tool to just throw and, you know, poke people out. The weapon's very ink-hungry, because you can't do it so freely, not like an end zap where it's like you can throw it and shoot for like 5 seconds. Not 5 seconds, but a long time. Like, you throw Suction with this, you get like, what is it, 2 bullets, 2 shots, depending on if you're running efficiency. I believe it's 2 or 3. It's not a lot, is what I'm getting at. It has Wave Breaker, which is, again, one of the weaker specials, but Range Blaster definitely has some of the best synergy with Wave Breaker because the damage value of 45 combos with the long range shot AoE. My problem with it is it's an ink-hungry weapon, and it has 200 for Wave Breaker, and it's like, yeah, you have Suction, but you're not going to be building Wave Breaker very much. And some weapons like Stamper down here can kind of just destroy Wave Breaker really, really, really comedically easily, because this thing has like 10 trillion object damage, so you can do 1 vertical into 1 horizontal like a training dummy, and that just breaks Wave Breaker instantly. So that's tough. But, you know, I talked about it with Inkbrush, where some weapons are kind of just better in solo queue. But Range Blaster is definitely one of those, because it's like, on paper, it shouldn't be that crazy, yet it sees so much success in solo queue that it's kind of wild. Like, I don't think it's a bad weapon, I never, like, thought that. But I never, like, viewed it so highly just because of the fact that it's Wave Breaker right now. Like, the main weapon can be crazy. It's, like, crazy AoE mid-range. And the fact it can one-shot is really nice. But, you know, bad inconsistency, the lack of pain output. Like, it has very defined weaknesses, but in spite of all those things, it's actually quite decent. So it's like this weird enigma weapon to me. I definitely think it's harder to learn than Blaster because your frame data is worse. Naturally, because you have more range. Actually, is your frame data worse? No, it's definitely worse. Like, I'm like thinking in my head, I'm like, am I making that up? No, it's definitely worse. I don't know why I'm like thinking about that. Yeah, kind of an interesting weapon. It's really good in tower control. That's like the mode for it. I don't think it's the most beginner friendly thing, but I definitely think it's fun. It's really fun. Alright, so if you want a blaster that, you know, doesn't have as extreme frame data in terms of susceptibility to being hit, let's talk about Rapid. So Rapid Blaster is longer range than this, I think. It's similar range to Range Blaster, I think it might be a little bit less. It's extremely similar, whatever it is, but the way that Rapid works is, unlike the other blasters we've talked about so far, it falls like closer to Clash. In the sense that a direct doesn't one-shot, a direct with this does 85 damage. But that does combo with the AoE weak hit. And its frame data is much better than these, so its movement isn't nearly as awful. I think its ink efficiency is quite better. And just general movement is a lot cleaner with this weapon. Or I guess, not cleaner, it's less funky? Yeah, that's the word I'll use. So it's pretty good. It's really good at the, you know, it doesn't one-shot, but it's really consistent at poking and like threatening with that AoE in that range. That's really nice. Quite good for that. It has Inkmine and Triple Ink Strike. Inkmine's kind of cool because you can make traps, and then, you know, the weapon may not one-shot, but if someone tries to run up at you, they step on Inkmine, take some damage, get marked, and then you hit them with the direct. You can combo them like that, so that's pretty fun. Triple Ink Strike, I'm not the hugest fan on it. It's not bad, it's kind of okay, it's just inoffensively decent special. This weapon is okay. I'd probably say, you know, pick it in a mode like TC. It's alright. You know, I feel like it's similar to Heavy, where I place it so close to the middle because it's not bad. It's not extremely difficult. It's not extremely easy or extremely easy to win with. It's not particularly bad. You'll definitely win games with it. It's kind of just alright. It's a pretty middle of the road weapon if you like the AoE aspect of Range Blaster, but you want to be more consistent at poking. This one's pretty good. And Rapid Deco. Dang, I put that really far to the left, huh? Rapid Deco is definitely, you know, the more aggressive of the two. You know, therefore it's probably more friendly in solo queue. It has Torpedo. And it has Inkjet. And Torpedo's really good on this because you can throw it at people and kind of like distract them in such a way that you can start poking with the main weapon. You can get combos like rolling the torpedo and directing the 85 damage. So that's really good. It has jetpack. It's kind of expensive at like 210, but its paint is okay. You're not going to get like 8 jetpacks a game like Ballpoint would sometimes, but you get an okay amount, like 5 or 6 on a good game, sure. It's definitely pretty potent in solo queue, I feel. Not like the easiest thing to play, because it's still a boss where you don't quite one-shot. You do need quite good aim to make the directs like count, because your kill time if you don't, direct combo. If you hit 3 AoEs, the kill time is like decently slow. So you definitely need to make your shots count. Inkjet's kind of cool. Your options after landing from Inkjet are pretty poor, because again, your weapon's kill time isn't great, so that's like a point of vulnerability with this weapon. That's definitely a downside. But it's just really good at snowballing and just, poking areas, saying I'm taking this move away, move out of the way. Which is quite nice in something like TC. Inkjet's really good in that as well. Again, definitely the more aggressive variant of the 2 rapids, so if you're digging the whole poking thing with rapid, but want the ability to actually like hold forward and get multi-kills, this is definitely the one for you. Pretty good, pretty fun, I enjoy it. So let's talk about Big Bro Rapid Pro. Rapid Pro compared to Rapid, what's the difference? Longer nozzle, has a handle, more range. Worse frame data, same damage values. So what are the kits? It's kind of funny how the colors look like this. Like I didn't intend them to be like blue on the left and red on the right, but that's kind of how the kits actually work out, funnily in solo, and how my opinion on it looks, I guess. So Big Rapid Pro, not really a fan of the kit. I kind of get what they were going for, but really not a fan. It has Toxic Mist, which on paper, yeah, it synergizes with slow kill time and just make it easier to hit people, sure. But it has Ink Vac. This weapon's paint output is extremely poor, like one of the poorest in the game. Like, if it weren't for the fact it has more range than Custom Blaster by a significant margin, yeah, this is like definitely one of the worst painters in the game because Mist plus Vac. It's funny, I remember getting baited, I guess, by the day 1 hype. It's funny when this happens with Blaster. There's this really good Japanese Blaster that I watched on Open sometimes in Splatoon 2, playing Rapid Deco particularly, named Yuyushi, I believe. And I remember they were streaming this weapon, Rapid Pro, because it was the only variant of the 2 in the game at launch. I was like, dang, he's making this look really good, and it got exciting. It's like, maybe Vac's not as bad as I thought. No, bro's just good at the game. I don't actually think this weapon's that crazy. The main weapon's great, but I don't like the kit on this one synergistically. Kind of just awkward. Again, lack of paint, it pokes people, but it's, it doesn't have crazy like tools to help a kill or combo sort of the way that this is mine, or this has Torpedo Jetpack. It kind of lacks that in terms of Vac. I think like stuff like Jet or like Ballpoint Nouveau makes more sense with Vac. Kind of weird. Not big on it, don't have a ton to say. Rapid Deco on the other hand, this thing's awesome. This thing's fun. It has Angle Shooter, which can combo well with the main weapon. Particularly 85. So it's like the Galaxy Brain Burst Bomb. That requires like 1 million more effort for less reward, but it's like 10 times funnier. And it has Whale. Whale's really good because it forces people to move in certain ways and gives you the ink refill. So this weapon is just incredible at poking in general. It can mark people, it can, whittle people, combo people. Really nice. Kind of difficult in solo queue, and I put it further down in terms of easy to learn, because again, you have more range, but your frame data is most certainly worse. So that can be a barrier. But actually, I do like Rapid Deco a lot. Rapid Pro Deco, rather. This one just snowballs better in terms of just like getting kills and stuff, so therefore it's easier to win with this. But I do actually think this weapon's like pretty decent in solo queue. You will struggle against like cooler counts of people just running at you for sure. But I respect this weapon a decent bit. Whenever I see it in solo queue, you fight a good one, it's really annoying because you just can't stand anywhere. And then you're like, okay, I'm gonna go over here, and then they whale you. Force you to either run further back or you go in the other direction, and then they just start poking the way that you're running. It's really annoying. So honestly, pretty good. Maybe not the most beginner friendly, but I like the weapon. All I got. Reflux is a weapon in the game. Where do you even begin on this? It's like if you took Squiffer and made it a bow class, so it has the nuance of it can hit over walls and around ledges, but it can still one-shot. The range is really weird and inconsistent, depending on how much you charge. Basically when you pick this, you pick it for the short range tap shot paint and missiles, as it's been done since like day one. You know, missiles got nerfed because of this thing in Turf War specifically, so thank you Reflex for that. I think the main weapon's quite fun, honestly. If you kind of like the idea of Squiffer but want like more nuance or like a more generally valuable special in like a solo environment that's like easier to learn, I'd say Reflex is like a good kind of weapon, because again, you don't have the problem charger just where it's like, there's a guy behind a wall, I can't hit them. It may be inconsistent with this because it's a bow, but you know, you can do it, and those arc shots do feel good, they do feel fun. This is a lightweight weapon, it's extremely ink efficient, the frame data is excellent, its range isn't great, Curling Bomb could let it rat, really good paint output. Despite the missile nerf, it still output like 1 million of them, so that's pretty good. Yeah, kind of a bit difficult because you have the charge hold mechanic with this too, like Squiffer, but you know, don't fall for the bait. You should be just painting with this for the most part. Charge holds are when you get like kind of crazy when the main weapon can actually like consistently hit people. Pretty good strafe. Again, just overall good frame data. You'll definitely struggle against weapons that are like good at fighting, that have more HD, like this thing into like stuff like 96 and like 52 Gal is nightmarishly bad. So, you know, that'll be your struggle. Amidst, you know, longer range options, the best you can do is missile and just like not let them kill you and be annoying. Really fun main weapon, definitely. I remember when the game was new, I was kind of like laughing at like how awful the design was, just because, you know, it had S2 unnerf missile. All that fun stuff. I shouldn't even say fun stuff, you know, in humor, because just like day one missile is just awful. Just never go back. Yeah, I think main weapon wise, it's pretty fun. Definitely just a for fun kind of weapon. And in terms of for fun kind of weapon, let's talk about Reflex Deco. Yeah, this one, I had a video about it, I talked about it. And how that, when it first dropped, you could have maybe made the argument it's like the worst weapon in the game. I don't think that anymore. Not to say that video was clickbait, because it's most certainly like one of the weaker weapons in the game, but yeah, no, Big Swig Big Swig is definitely worse. The vanilla kit, no doubt. So with this, I talked about how you have a missile to kind of deal with a lot of your problems in like the mid to long range. This one has wall. Wall doesn't really synergize because its range isn't great, and it's a charge time weapon, so it's a little awkward. It has slider, which is generally one of the lower value specials in this game. But this weapon paints a lot. You can create like weird, funky scenarios with wall plus slider sometimes. If you're really proficient at the main weapon and kind of just like want to have fun as like an offshoot of this because you're tired of just like farming missiles, this is a fun weapon. In terms of winning, it is hard to win with. I can say this. I've been farming even series lately with a lot of reslider weapons. I think my win streak right now is like 15 or something obscene like that. And I can tell you with complete certainty of reslider weapons, I have to turn my brain on like big time on this one because the kit will not carry you. You need main weapon mechanics on this thing. You need that. And that could be fun for the challenge of it, sure, because the weapon is not good. But it's also kind of fun. I can't lie. You know, I have a soft spot in my heart for this thing. It's kind of like the undercover tier. Well, actually, that's like toward the end. It's like undercover tier of like it's objectively bad, but damn, is it kind of fun though. So I don't know. I have a soft spot for this. Like I can't hate this thing. You know, I made the video be like, this thing's terrible. It didn't actually sound like that. I was more just like talking about why the kit doesn't work and all that. But yeah, it's bad, but I like it. Big can reslider. Oh wait, that's yeah, actually it's this. Yeah, that's a good one. I got surprised. I clicked that thinking it would be S-Blast 92 for some reason. S-Blast, it's one of the new weapons in Splatoon 3. S-Blast is like if you combine Range Blaster into Normal Blaster, but the long range mode has a very, very, very small hitbox for the AoE, so it's not even comparable to Range Blaster in that sense. It's more just like it has long range, but the hitbox is tiny. But it still does one shot, and the thing with it is it's fully accurate as opposed to Range Blaster, so if you're really good with aiming with that, you can get some crazy directs on it. That's cool. The short range is honestly more like Luna Blaster, if anything, because it's a really, really, really big hitbox. The way the modes work on this thing is if you stand and shoot, then you'll get the long range. And if you jump before shooting, you'll hear like a little like click beepy noise on it, and it'll transition into short range mode, and the reticle like widens a lot. That's basically the Luna shot. Both of them can one shot. There is a lot of jump maybe not a lot of jump RNG, but there is jump RNG to the short range because you are jumping with it. Mechanically, it's quite difficult because you're kind of trying to juggle like this easy to play weapon with this like weapon, but also you're taking away like one of this weapon's best strengths, so it's like this really awkward, like in theory I should be able to one-shot all these people and like AoE like these people, but mechanically it's actually kind of hard against good players because if you commit to the wrong mode of fire or just straight up miss, you kind of just die because your frame data is not great. And your paint isn't great, and your ink efficiency isn't great. So that's the downsides of Blaster in that sense. You might be wondering, Keen, what the heck happened with the kits? Why is this one so hard to win with and this one so easy to win with? It is mechanically quite hard, don't get me wrong. It's not saying it's easy to win with this one, because it's really not. In terms of main weapon, I feel. But yeah, this one on the right, 92, has Sprinkler plus Reslider. Again, Reslider, one of the lower value specials. The thing with a lot of the Reslider weapons in this game, like Silver Arrow, is like this has Fizzy to actually combo a slider. This has nothing of the sort. Like Sprinkler is not a means to like combo or like really force some slider like gameplay to do something. So farming for like a lower tier special is not great. You know, lacking a tool to really poke people, especially when your long range AoE is such a small hitbox, is not great. I feel like this kit is like easily one of the weakest in the game, so I'm not high on it. Like opinion wise, I don't think this gun is very good. I talked about, you know, briefly ago how I was playing Reflex Deco to farm for my Golden Free Slider badge because I'm getting there. I'm on the verge of 4-starring Dapple Nouveau, and once I will have done that, I'll have 4-starred, at least 4-star because I 5-starred Undercover. I'll have 4-star on every Reslider weapon in the game, except for S-Blast. I don't like this thing. I have personal bias against it. I just don't think it's really fun. It's not even like funny bad, but part of that's like the facets of Blaster I like aren't really present in this one because I really like stuff like Rapid and Rage Blaster for the crazy mid-range AoE more than the short-range kind of gameplay that like Luna and Reg Blaster have. That's not as much my style. So yeah, to have this weapon focus more on shorter range and have this like really sucky kit that's like not even really fun, like funny bad, is like I don't like it. So yeah, I could probably afford to go further down, right? But I'm not trying to be like too biased against the thing. But yeah, it's difficult to play. It's not, you're not gonna win a ton with this thing. But yeah, just play this one because this one has Burst Bomb plus Booyah Bomb. I think that's self-explanatory. If you know what either of those things do, yeah, it's like one of the best combo kits in the game. And yet this still doesn't see a lot of play because again, all the aforementioned flaws with the main weapon. And I do think it's a bit more difficult to play than some people might give it credit. So yeah, I feel like if you're like some crazy one trick on this, like you might be like wild. But yeah, it's still kind of difficult. But the kit is fantastic, like amazing kit, fantastic. And also, I love this one color wise. You know, I don't think that's really hard to tell why when you know my OC that I use for like my PFP on this channel and everything. Their primary color palette is like black, white, and gray, and like a soft purple. So I see a combination of like a softish purple with a gray color. I kind of just squinted at it, and I'm like, yeah, that's pretty. I like it. Smile. I really like 91. I don't like you, 92. 92, ugly. 91, awesome. Love 91. Let's talk about Bucket. You know, it's funny the way this works alphabetically is, this is like the basic bucket. This was like the first bucket added in Splatoon 1 as a class, and yet it's like all the way here. This one's kind of weird. I have it like really far to the left, honestly. I think this weapon is a pretty good solo queue weapon. We'll throw Bucket Deco up here too, because there's a really big difference between the two in terms of kits that affect their viability and difficulty to play. And you know, from making this chart, if you see something closer to bottom right and it's also like harder to learn on top of being harder to win with, that's not a good sign for how good it is. That's really not. So I'm going to talk about the good first, which is the Reg Bucket. Reg Bucket has triple Ink Strike and Splat Bomb. Splat Bomb is great. It can combo with the main weapon if people aren't wearing sub-resist, because 70 damage plus 30 on the bomb can kill. That's great. That's awesome. Poking tool, good. Bomb equal, good. Lethal Bomb, amazing. It breaks stage geometry, because Bucket can throw its hitbox over like walls and around corners, so that's pretty good. Really nice. Damage values are awesome. 70 and 50, quite good. And triple Ink Strike, again, not the craziest special in the game, but, you know, a very, like, respectable thing to throw out. It makes space. You can sort of force people in certain ways into your main weapon, all that. You know, it's a rounded kit. It's quite nice. I like Bucket. It's very respectably good. Bucket's never really bad with whatever decent kit it has. So, you know, this is really good. I do think it's a bit difficult if you're new, because you're going to have to learn about maps to really abuse, you know, where Bucket can hit over walls and all that, because that takes practice. It's not the most intuitive thing to understand. And Bucket does have fall-off, so, you know, if you hit the weak hit and you're above someone, it might 3-shot instead of 2-shot, so there's little, like, difficulties to overcome. But in terms of investment, Bucket's a really good main weapon. I think if you get good with it, the strengths that it has are pretty unique to itself as a weapon class. Like, you can get fall-off with a lot of weapons in this game, right? But Bucket has historically been good in these games for a good reason, really. So, you know, high damage value, cheats geometry, has good kit, has lethal bomb. Can't really complain. However, what you can really complain about is Slosher Deco, because this is like, I feel like this is the devs trying to play some 4D chess, being like, this is the coolest weapon ever if you're just like actually built like a robot. It has angle shooter, zipcaster, and this isn't a case of me talking about like zipcaster on Luna or Carbon, because this actually has the range to effectively use zipcaster, but the combination of like, you know, fall off damage existing and just not the fastest kill time in the game, and kind of just like the weird way that Slosh projectile works with how you turn your camera, it's really difficult to use it effectively with zipcaster. And zipcaster is not really like a crazy win condition the way a lot of other specials in this game are, you know, like Kraken or Booyah Bomb, that sort of thing. So it's really difficult as a base, and your sub is angle shooter, which can theoretically combo with your main weapon if you hit the 70 hitbox, right? But it's also pretty unintuitive to use, because Bucket cheats geometry and hits around walls and stuff, and theoretically Angle Shooter can if you like ping-pong it off walls perfectly. But be realistic, you're a human, you're like having to flick your camera around like crazy and do all this wild stuff while like aligning your markers in like a quick fashion. It's asking too much, basically, for too little reward. We'll get to it in a bit with the regular Stamper, but basically Stamper's variant has Burst Bomb and Zipcaster, which is like this weapon if it was a lot easier to play but also more rewarding, and you know that, spoilers, will go like here. So there's just not really a reason to pick Slosher Deco outside of for funsies, or if you want to build the gold Zipcaster badge or something like that. It's definitely a for fun kind of weapon, but whenever you play it, it's definitely like you have to work for your win. It's kind of like Reflex Deco in that sense. You have to work really hard for it. Maybe I'm being too harsh. It could be like up here. I just put it down here, like on the difficulty to learn, because that kit is it's so demanding. That is so demanding. It has to go down here. There is too much work that needs to be done with that kit to actually like achieve gameplay. It's kind of crazy. So, continuing our Bucket discussion, let's talk about Sloshing Machine and Sloshing Machine Neo. Now, if you play the game on day one, you probably hated the same with the Burning Passion. Just being like, hitbox too big, kit too good, Booyah too good, this guy, they outrange me, they cheat geometry, the fizzy just combos, I die every time, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, Machine day one was like one of the most broken weapons in the game with like Splash. Honestly, you could probably argue this being like maybe the #1 weapon day one of the game, just because Booyah Bomb was glitched back then. It didn't have a hard cap on how fast you could charge it. And what I mean by that is like Booyah Bomb now, even if you like mash it like full assisted speedrun level, there's like a limitation to how fast you can charge it. The first bit that this game came out, that wasn't in place for some reason, even though it was in Splatoon 2. So basically, if you had like insane mashing with Booyah Bomb, it was like a legitimate panic button that you just couldn't kill the guy. So this thing has Fizzy Bomb and Booyah Bomb, which is like one of the strongest kits in this game, let alone on this weapon, because it's a bucket. What differentiates it about itself compared to a normal bucket is it has directs and indirects. Directs do 76 damage, indirects do 38, I believe. Or no, it's 36 actually. Yeah, I think it's 36. Yeah, 36. And to hit the direct, you basically just need to hit like the center of your reticle. But as opposed to bucket, where I talked about how it's a little bit tricky to kind of hit around walls like consistently, this one is much easier to do that with because the hitbox size is more like a corkscrew kind of shape. So it is like probably #1 in the game at hitting around corners while like safely. Like this guy can sit behind, like around a corner behind a wall and still hit you, and that's crazy. And it's a pretty big hitbox as well, mind you. So in terms of that strength of the weapon, if you like that aspect of Slosher and want like a more consistent, easier way to do that, Machine is like the thing for you. So that's awesome. I do think, you know, back, you know, like a year ago before like the frame data nerf and like ink efficiency nerf and like all that stuff, I put this like up here. I do think it's more difficult to learn these days because it's, you know, the nerfs that it received were kind of tough. It does have a 220 Booyah on this variant in particular, which is quite expensive. The weapon's very ink hungry. Its kill time is very slow because of that, you know, frame data nerf and all that. So you really need to be good at abusing stage geometry with this thing, because if you just like try and walk at a 52 gal and you're both pointing at each other, this is just going to blow you up as long as you're in range. Like, you're just going to die. This thing's kill time is really slow, and that's like an actual problem when cooler exists in this game, and like mobility goes like hyper speed, and like you trade this guy when he's coolered up and you're not coolered, and you have the 220 Booyah and you're on the full respawn. This guy's like already back in the middle, like killing the rest of your team by the time you respawn. That kind of thing. Like, the pace of the game is really fast for this weapon sometimes, and you can definitely feel it. But overall, the main weapon's fantastic. The kit is incredible on this one. This one's also good for different reasons I'll talk about in a moment. But yeah, it's just... you have a really defined win condition. You have an amazing main weapon that can like deal with a facet of the game. And sometimes it's frustrating in solo queue because you know a guy's in a place, but it's really difficult to hit them with most weapons. This weapon can basically hit anyone as long as it's in range, so that's awesome. So if you have aim, you have, you know, spacing, awareness, all that down, you want a rounded kit that offers a lot to yourself and also your team. Excellent. Machine, honestly, it has some hurdles, but if you're new to the game, I think this is a really good weapon, honestly, for how much value you get out of it. Also, the thing that makes me prefer this over Reg Bucket in terms of like ease of use is I talked about like camera flicking with Reg Bucket. That's a little tricky if you're new. This one you don't have to deal with that. It's more just like point in the direction that you want to hit. End of story. So it's a lot simpler in that sense. If you're wondering why there's such like a discrepancy on terms of how easy it is to play, I think this one's much more straightforward to understand for people. Machine Neo has point sensor. And kind of the recurring thing with a lot of point sensor weapons I've talked about is how it's difficult to hit people, even if you know that they're there for a lot of weapons. But I talked about how Machine is really good at just hitting people, because it can hit around corners and like, you know, like not through walls, but if you're good at spacing, it feels like you can hit basically anywhere. So point sensor is really potent on this, and on top of that has Zuka. And you know, this has a 220 Booyah Bomb, and point sensor is not a sub that paints the main weapon, doesn't paint amazingly, but it paints enough that you can build Zuka with this, because I believe it's 190p. So the combination of knowing where people are to amplify the strength and potency of not only your AoE, but the Zuka shots that you get is really, really good. Like, I feel like this is like the strongest point sensor in the game for just talking in a vacuum, like no question. So that's a lot of good stuff going for it. And you know, with Zuka, it's pretty nice if you direct someone but they get out of your range. You can do like crazy stuff like pop Zuka and just finish the kill with the AoE, all that. Or the inverse, you pop the last Zuka shot, you hit the guy with the AoE, they're in the corner, they're hiding, like struggling, being like, I'm so weak, and then you just use the main weapon's ability to cheat geometry to just kill the guy. That's great, that's awesome. I really like this kit. If you're more okay with like a kind of, I guess aggressive, maybe not aggressive. If you want like the information machine that can like kind of like hold forward confidently sometimes, because you know where people are and you can like pop like the super good Zukas because you know where people are. This one's really good. I feel like Reg Machine plays a little slower tempo because you kind of play a little more paint-based with your Fizzy Bomb. And you don't want to die as much with this one because the Booyah Bomb is like kind of high value as opposed to this one where if you die it's not as important because cheaper Zuka, and Zuka's not like the Booyah tier of like, if you're like playing in TC and you want to win it over time, you don't die with this thing because Booyah is like the way to win. Like Zuka's not quite there. Like Zuka's really good, but it's not, you know what I mean? Yeah, these are both just really, really good, honestly. If you can play one and learn the other, you know, I do that. I play a lot of Machine still. It's just a really comfortable weapons, I would say. I really like them. If, you know, that wasn't evidenced by how much I'm praising them. But yeah, that's pretty cool. Big Machine fan. Big Machine was actually the second weapon I 5-starred in this game thinking about it. Pretty sure that it was. Alright, so let's talk about Snipe Rider. So this one's a bit weird. In terms of, you know, competitive viability, this thing's like all the way on the left side. But we're talking solo queue, I'm talking if you're new. I don't think this is the easiest weapon to learn if you're new. It's a charger. It has okay charge speed. It's a little bit slower than the regular Splat charger, which I haven't even talked about yet because of how the alphabet works. This is kind of dumb. If I could change one thing about this video, I would change that I would order in such a way I talk about like the basic quote-unquote weapon first. That way I don't have to be all like, oh yeah, we'll talk about Splattershot at the end when it's like the basic weapon ever. But Sniper Rider, it has okay charge speed. The thing that differentiates this from other chargers is its partials are pretty poor and its damage with partials is pretty poor, but the trade-off is when you fully charge with this thing, you get 5 taps, basically. You get 5 times that you get to hit the button to shoot 5 shots. It has incredible range, one of the highest in the game. Some of the cleanest paint in the game with incredibly clean, thick lines. Maybe not thick, but when you get 5 shots, it's pretty thick, you know what I mean? You get to paint like a whole entire rectangle on the map for like 1 charge, that's crazy. Or like 1 charge for the 5 shots paints like a whole rectangle, you know what I mean? Like it's one of the best it's one of the best painters in general, and it's one of the best clean painters in general, because I talk about like Blob gets high paint numbers or Bo gets high paint numbers. It's not like clean paint. This is clean paint because of how Charger paints. That's really good. That's one of its strengths. This one has Sprinkler plus Cooler. It is seeing a ridiculous amount of usage in competitive play because it's just having Cooler on a weapon that paints as well as this with the anchor position is really, really good. Like it kind of has a monopoly on the anchor role right now in comp. It's really, really good. As opposed to other chargers, you know, you might be like freaking out if you don't know the damage highs, being like, oh my god, you charge once to get 5 shots? That's crazy, how is that not broken? Because as opposed to like chargers like E-Liter, you don't one-shot with your shots. They do 68 damage, I believe, on full charge, which combos off of a lot of things in this game, so it's really, really, really good teammate to have that it's just giving you so much paint, and if it hits a guy once, you can basically one-shot them with most good things. That's really good. Yeah, just amazing weapon in team comp. I think in solo queue, and if you're new, this is difficult because you have to deal with A, a slow charge time, B, you have to hit 2 shots, sort of similar to Bamboo, but you don't have the speed of Bamboo's gameplay to actually compensate for that. So you need to giga aim with this thing in solo queue, especially when you're new, because if you're playing at lower levels, you know you're gonna have to hit the guy twice. People are not like hitting each other. So not beginner friendly, but if you know you like a supportive weapon that paints a lot, and you like the feeling of like comboing with teammates or finishing their kills or helping them finish their kills, really good. It's really nice. Red Pencil has Splashball and Rain, which is pretty good in zones. If you're playing solo, maybe you would honestly prefer this. In some sense, it's like blue is definitely stronger on the whole for what it value it brings to a team, but if you're just like painting like in the back of like solo zones, maybe you would like the Red Pencil. Definitely like, it's not bad. It's kind of just like respectably decent, you know, it kind of just makes you nod your head and go like, yeah, it's pretty good. But it's nothing like earth-shatteringly good. So, it's nice. It's fine, but like the blue one's like where it's at, for sure. So we're gonna talk about, where is this one? It's Ralabrella. Actually, let me put both Brellas up actually, because there's a massive discrepancy here. This on the bottom right, all the way bottom right, is regular Brella. This on the left is Ralabrella. Okay, let's talk about the bad before the good, because I'm kind of flip-flopping between some of that sometimes. Regbrella is easily one of the worst weapons in the game. It's an incredibly undertuned main weapon right now because it's still suffering from a bunch of nerfs it got in Splatoon 2. Its damage is inconsistent, its range is low, its shield is not very durable against pretty much like any special in the game, or like a lot of main weapons, you know, particularly Pencil shreds it, Sword shreds it, Squeezer shreds it, Bow shred it, not that they're super relevant, but that's the idea. Some weapons can cheat geometry like Bucket and kind of just shoot over and don't care. Kill time's kind of inconsistent because the way that Brella operates is you need to be closer to deal more consistent damage because the pellet spread is wider at like further ranges. So, okay. Weaker main weapon. Can you compensate for that? Not on this kit because it has Sprinkler and Triple Ink Strike, and we've talked about some other Triple Ink Strikes that actually offer you more in a team, like Bucket, or, you know, even Rapid, where the main weapons are like strong enough that they actually like offer something. But like Sprinkler's kind of a whatever sub, and like farming a special like that isn't really the most important thing in the world, kind of like with 96 and back, where it's like, yeah, it's nice to get them, but like you should put more valuable things on your weapon to make it worth picking. So overall in Regbrella, yeah, it's just a really difficult to play main weapon because of all the nuance it requires. It's a really not super valuable kit on the original. I just don't see any reason to legitimately pick it over other things. I'm probably just biased because I played Brawlin 2 and I was really good at it. So yeah, this thing is like comedically bad. It's like one of the worst weapons in this game. On the flip side, Ralabrella is cool. A lot of the weaknesses I say still apply to this, obviously, but you know, the difference on this is you have auto bombs, so you have an actual bomb with value to throw, and it kind of makes your fights a bit easier. And it has a really cheap jetpack at 190p. And there is inherent synergy with jetpack on Brella. I talked about how Rapid Deco struggles a bit to defend itself on landing. because of its slow kill time and all that when it lands from jetpack. What Brella offers is you can open the shield on defense, like when you land from the jetpack, to kind of stall. So it's not as free to kill a Brella on the landing of Inkjet as some other weapons, which is really good. In terms of easy to win, you know, maybe it probably is still like over here because the main weapon's really hard, but that's more a difficulty on harder to learn, because this is a really difficult main weapon to learn because, again, it is undertuned in senses. And it's just really mechanically demanding because it's a shotgun, but you can open the shield, but there's a startup on the shield, and this game doesn't have the best netcode, so it's just, you need to do a lot of work with this weapon to do, like, kind of basic things that other weapons don't struggle to do. So it's just a really big commitment. If you're going to commit to it, play this one for sure, like, no question. This one's just, like, I never feel threatened by Brella, like, ever. It's always just, like, Sorella's like, oh, I'm scared, but not so much of the weapon, more so, like, they're stalling and holding the spot, kind of, and they're gonna be close to jetpack soon. That's kind of the threat of it. I really like this weapon. I want main weapon buffs on it. I think it might happen at one point, but it hasn't yet, so yeah, this Reg Brella has to go on bottom right. It's not good. Let's talk about regular charger. It has spot bomb, it has vacuum. This is your basic charger. You charge all the way, you one-shot, your range is respectable. Bomb is kind of cool if someone runs at you. To put down as like forward pressure, it also forces like other people to flush out of areas if you're trying to hit them with the main weapon, so that's cool. Back is niche but good in certain scenarios. Kind of an expensive back. I think it's like 210 on this. I think it's 210. It's 210 or 200. I like don't see Reg Charger anymore because it kind of just fell off the meta completely. As of what value it brings compared to something like Pencil, it's just like not there. I definitely prefer the other variant. We'll talk about it at the end because it starts with a Z, so you know, stick around for that. You know, hour 3 of the video or whatever it is. Yeah, I wouldn't super recommend to beginners. It's a bit difficult to learn, and again, VAC is not a solo queue friendly special in the slightest, so yeah, not really big on this one if you're new. We'll talk about Reg Dualie, which is, I talked about Empry last time. Or I say last time because it was last recording. Oh my god, my voice is dying. Why am I doing this? I ask as I'm still recording. This is Suction Bomb Crab, which is an insane kit. It's insane. Yeah, Suction's kind of weird because it's a slow bomb, but you know, having a bomb is better than not like 9 out of 10 times, so I complain about that on Dualie. It has a cheap crab, I think it's like 190. Weapon paint's pretty good, good frame data, good movement. If you're like godlike at the main weapon, this thing is like very, very strong. Maybe like a little difficult for beginners, like it's more nuanced than like basic shooters, but if you get really good with Dualie, it'll feel like really, really strong. It's a rounded kit that does a lot of the things you really want out of a weapon. Not really much to say about it, it's just very solid. Respectable. Regular Roller I have further to the left because I definitely think it's easier to win with this because it's more self-sufficient, as I mentioned earlier or alluded to. Because this one has Curling Bomb as its sub, and Roller can't paint or move particularly well, so Curling Bomb is quite literally the perfect sub for it. So that's great. It has Bubble, which is really good for it, because if you set under a ledge, you're threatening under the ledge, people aren't allowed to stand there, so that's great. Bubble kind of amplifies the threat range of that exponentially, because at least with like Roller before, it's like you roll bombs under the ledge to make them move, that kind of deal. You can't do that with Bubble, or, you know, the ways that you do it are more limited. So that's really good. Roller is a demon in solo queue, Rainmaker, and TC kind of gameplay. So yeah, it's a kind of weapon that's basic and you're going to get away with just like swinging at people with the horizontal when you're new, but I also feel like there's enough nuance to how much you can improve with your positioning and your verticals under ledges. I think it's still like quite strong at high level. It just requires like a lot of work, as people no longer fall for like, you know, as people improve, they don't get hit by like random horizontals anymore. They're actually gonna like paint the map and like flush you out and all that. So if you're willing to deal with that, the weapon's still kind of crazy strong. It just requires more works in different ways. I alluded to this earlier as well with Stamper. I have really close. As I think power level wise, they're both really similar. Honestly, you could argue it's a bit easier to win Fred or Fred. I like tripping on my words. I'm trying to say too much. I have to like slow down. I was about to say Stampcaster. You could argue it's easier to win with this Stamper than the other one just because it has a burst bomb in terms of solo queue proficiency and just diffing people and killing. Sure, but I do think as a win condition, Crab is a lot more straightforward and consistent than Zipcaster. But yeah, this is like the best Zipcaster weapon in the game. What I talked about with Bucket Deco, yeah, this is kind of just like I wouldn't say easier to play, I'd say it's more just less ridiculous off the wall, fall off big brain thing. It's more just like point and click with Stamper plus Burst Bomb than it is with like Break Geometry with Ankle Shooter by bouncing it off the wall and then hitting this guy over the wall, kind of like amount of work. This is an extremely fun weapon. I talked about Stamper too much already in the other one. Basically what I said still applies, except now that you have Burst Bomb, you can, you know, amplify your fighting capacity in neutral, because this is definitely the more aggressive of the two Stampers, as it has Zipcaster, so that much is like obvious, right? But you can do like throw a Burst Bomb up, do a vertical, and that can like the burst can land as you hit the vertical, so it just like combos. Or you could do Burst Bomb plus horizontal, because I talked about how horizontal has a bad kill time, but you still want to like do it when you're crossfiring for a teammate. Burst Bomb plus horizontal is crazy, because if you know a guy's not at full health, or you want to immediately fight them or deal damage to them without waiting, that's crazy, because if you direct the Burst Bomb and then hit the horizontal, that's 95 damage. That's insane for like basically no windup. So that's crazy. Yeah, this is like one of the strongest weapons in the game. I love this thing. I'm also gonna take a moment, hold on. Gap in the recording. I have to edit that later. Okay, so sitting back down after getting up for a second, because I think talking for an hour and a half was driving me a bit crazy and I could feel my voice dying, so sometimes you just have to get up and walk away and take a break. That's fine. Okay. So let's talk about Wiper. I have it up here. So with Stamper, I talked about how vertical is kind of the name of the game for a lot of it, because of how the frame data works. It's kind of, the idea of the frame data I talked about with Stamper is kind of just flipped for Wiper, where Wiper horizontal has like no startup or end lag, but Wiper vertical has a little bit of startup and a lot of end lag. Not like a lot, but you know, compared to horizontal, like Wiper gameplay is pretty much like 80%. If not more, maybe like 90% horizontal. So with this thing, what I said with Stamper applies where the vertical does more damage and has more range than the horizontal. The horizontal on Wiper does 35, or 30 with the projectile, not 35, that'd be ridiculous. So it does 30 with the horizontal and 60 with the vertical. The kit on this is Torpedo plus Hammer. So basically what I talked about with Tetra, where I said it's a fighting weapon, that kind of applies to Wiper, where you're kind of just riding around with your absurd movement, good clean paint with horizontals, and crazy frame data on top of being a lightweight weapon. You kind of just abuse that and force fights into people. And you have some kind of crazy like solo X Factor with Hammer. Like this thing in like Rainmaker is a demon, which is why I have it closer and easier to win. It's also a lot easier to play than Stamper, because again, like 90% of the gameplay is horizontal, and you have really good frame data on that, so you don't have to worry about it. It's more ink efficient, it's a lightweight. It's just generally overall much easier to play than Stamper. Not to say that the ceiling is like crazy lower or anything, because there's still crazy stuff you can do with verticals under ledges and all that, and like dash slashes. It's still got crazy frame data. It's just that Stamper, the way that the kits work also make it so there's a lot of room for improvement as opposed to Wiper kits. Because this one also has the second kit, which is Beacon plus Missile, which sounds really good. It kind of is as a kit for sure, but Wiper's kill time is quite slow because it's a 4-shot. So that's a notable weakness of it. Torpedo can offset that to some degree, and you have Crazy Strafe to compensate the fact that your kills are quite slow. It still has a 1-shot like Stamper, but the hitbox is significantly smaller, so you will not be relying on that very much. Most of the game of Wiper is just trying to isolate fights the best that you can, pick 1v1s if you can against weapons that can't deal with you, and sort of abuse that. Alright, I'm gonna once again break the illusion. I had to get up for a second, I forgot what I was talking about instead of it being Wiper related. Yeah, I think I was talking about Wiper, or was about to talk about Wiper Deco. So the thing with Wiper Deco is I mentioned that the kill time on Wiper is not good, but it's kind of offset by the fact you have Torpedo Hammer on the original kit. You can definitely feel how slow the kill time is on Wiper Deco. It's very bad at fighting in terms of raw kill power. Like, yeah, your strafe is crazy, But kill time being slow is kind of a problem against like some weapons. That's pretty bad. I remember people were going crazy when Wiper Deco was initially announced because it was like, oh, this is so broken. Why would the devs put missiles on this? But realistically, having no tool to help it fight outside of popping missile is definitely like weighing it down a lot. So it kind of feels like a niche counterpick kind of weapon. Like it's like really good into like fighting a, you know, like an E-leader comp, or it's really good on maps where, you know, beacon missile would be pretty good. You know, Hammerhead's like one of the best missile maps, for example. So it's still quite good. I do think it's much harder to win with than solo queue. As I've been hammering this point down for like multiple hours, so you're gonna get it in your head. If your weapon is better at killing and self-sufficient in solo queue, you'll have more success with it, for sure. The Wiper Deco is more of like a supportive playstyle compared to Reg Wiper. Still very legitimate, still amazing frame data, still very difficult to kill. The actual Wiper player, but definitely not quite as easy to win with. So, finally, we get to the most basic weapon in the game, the Splattershot, literally. Well, not quite literally. I was gonna say the starting gun, that's not true, that's actually what Junior is. We haven't even talked about the normal variant of that soon. So, Splattershot is extremely rounded, it's a shooter, it's a 3-shot. Has jump RNG, paints well, okay range, pretty ink efficient. It's just extremely basic. If you want a rounded weapon with the ability to kind of just point and click at people, a really good lethal bomb, and a long range pressure kill special in form of Trizuka, it's for you. Easily one of the best solo queue weapons as far as like Western is concerned, because people don't... I say Western because and I feel like you're going to be fighting more weapons that like have good Splattershot matchups in like Japan solo queue, for example, because they play more range stuff like Swig 96 than you would see in like NA servers. But it's a really solid solo queue weapon, like regardless, so... Yeah, not a ton to say. If you just want like a basic rounded weapon to start the game with, you can't go wrong here. Because it's not the kind of weapon that falls off as you get better. Like, no, it's still quite strong as you improve, so... Pretty strong. I also have Junior up here. It's pretty easy to learn. Definitely a weapon that can give bad habits because of how privileged it is in some senses. Has insane frame data, it's a lightweight weapon, it's probably the most ink efficient weapon in the game because it can shoot for 20 seconds without stopping, and its paint output is really, really high. Has Spot Bomb. Really good. It has Bubble, which is a really good resource drain. Is like the best way to put it on Junior, that people need to like burn specials or bombs to kind of get rid of it. That's good. It's really poor at fighting, its accuracy is pretty poor, its range is pretty bad. That's downsides for it. If you like throwing bombs, like a lot, if you really like bombs, and you like weapons that paint and have good frame data and that are hard to kill, yeah, play Junior. Be annoying. This thing's for you. And talking about the original Nova. So the thing with this is opposed to Anarchy Nova, where I talked about how that one's a special spammer. This one's still a special spammer, it has point sensor, but it kind of lacks the potency of Inkjet because it has Whale. And I understand what the devs were definitely going for with this, where the main weapon's a 5-shot kill, so it's pretty bad at killing for a shooter in particular. So to compensate, they gave it Whale to help it combo in like 3-shot or 4-shot. But the thing is, the weapon's just not really threatening. Outside of those moments it has Whale, and even then there's still more threatening things. I'm more scared of a 52 running at me and 2 bulleting me when a Whale is up than a Nova 4-shotting me, you know what I mean? Like, you'll have a lot of paint output and info dumping for your team with Whale and point sensor with this thing, but you're just not threatening as a main weapon. So it's a really easy concept to understand, but I think it's pretty difficult to win with just because there's no potency to it. It's not a good solo queue pick. Now, Splattershot Pro, I talked about it with Forge, where the weapon has a lot of problems and kind of lacks a lot of the privilege of basic shooters. That still applies here, obviously. It has Angle Shooter, which can theoretically combo off with high damage value, but again, Angle Shooter is kind of difficult to use for the like amount of value it gives you. I think the more appealing thing about this one is it has crab and it's 190p, which sounds crazy on a shooter, but again, shooter air quotations, this thing lacks a lot of the privilege in that sense. Like Dualie will be farming more crabs than this thing realistically. It has better ink efficiency and painting, even if it is shorter range. But it is basic, it's a shooter. I have to admit, if you're new to the game, it's probably a perfectly valid pick, as opposed to something like a Stamper, Dualie, or a L3. It's a much easier main weapon to understand. But, you know, I'm gonna skip over Air Splash. Kinda ranged. Where do I have Splash on here? Shouldn't it be here, alphabetically? Am I actually missing Vanilla Splash on this? That's crazy. Alright, so quick character break once again. I had to edit that little bit out because I swear I put Vanilla Splash-O-Matic on this list, and it's really funny that I can't find the layer that I put it because alphabetically it's not here unless I'm just blind. But yeah, Splash-O-Matic, they give me more reason to immediately trash talk Splattershot Pro. You know, I mentioned how crab on a shooter is easier to understand, so Vanilla Pro might be more appealing in that sense, but we're going to throw that out the window immediately because the weapon with crab you should actually be playing if you're new to the game, Splash-O-Matic, because all the perks of the other Splash I mentioned are still applying here. And on top of that, it has a kit that helps it fight a bit better at ranges further than just short range, because it has Burst Bomb as a sub and crab as a special. And that kit alone has so much synergy between the main and the sub and the sub and the special and the sub in like every which way. So to have a weapon that is a shooter, amazing frame data, amazing paint, perfect accuracy, jumping and standing, great turf output, great ink efficiency, high special output, as I believe it's still 200 on crab on this. Yeah, just fantastic. There's a reason this weapon defined the game for like a year, or some nerfs. And even after the nerfs, this thing is still fantastic. It'll struggle to fight stuff like 52. It can get kind of overwhelmed by Zukas and Coolers sometimes, but in spite of that, still insane. Fantastic if you're new, because it's easy to understand on a basic level, and as you improve, your burst bombs will get better, crab positioning will get better, your crab one-shots will, you know, start existing. Just 10 out of 10, fantastic. Like, I cannot recommend this weapon enough if you're new. So I have Sploosh here. Definitely a kind of weapon that succeeds more at low level play than higher level play, no question, but it's a shooter, it's basic, god tier frame data, currently bump to move, easy to understand, quick kill time, high fire rate, good damage, good ink efficiency, and it has hammer. This thing will probably see a lot of usage in lower ranks when you're playing. You'll definitely see it a lot, especially in Rainmaker. Definitely has some crazy X factor. Cheap to paint for special on top of good paint output. Definitely a weapon that plays very linear, so it's easy to get into bad habits with this, but in spite of that, definitely gonna see a lot of success with it if you're new, so I can't disagree to say it'd be a good pick to start the game with. Let's talk about Reg Squeezer. Obviously, there's still that execution barrier because it is a weapon that has mashing, sure. But this weapon has Zuka, and again, it's one of the best main weapons in the game. And it may be a 210 Zuka, the weapon may not paint amazingly, but the ability to play the literal point-and-click adventure with full accuracy, and the range that it has, is it's too strong to ignore. The sub is Flashball, which is like okay. It's not the greatest thing ever, but it can provide a little bit of safety in terms of, you know, actually shooting your Zuka shots and, you know, pot shotting in front of a leader or something like that, so that's pretty nice. Not a ton to say, just incredible main weapon and decent rounded kit. Paint is not great, and it kind of wishes I had a bomb. Outside of that, you really have nothing to complain about. So yeah, fantastic. Beginner friendly, not really. I'd definitely say play shot or something if you're new, because having a bomb and just not having to, you know, mash your controller, it'll be a lot easier on you, but like long term, that's something crazy. Let's talk about the tents. Another umbrella class weapon. This weapon has an obscene amount of nuance to it that I talk about in its own video, and quite frankly I probably will at some point, because I played Tent for a lot of time in 2. Basically, it's umbrella, but when you open the shield, it detaches off and just is a big wall that can enable pushes, install spots, and paint a lot on the map. And it's a big HP sponge because it has around 1300 health once it's detached, give or take. Pretty good resource drain. It's a heavier weapon. Its frame data is really poor. It has the ability to one-shot on like all the other umbrellas if it is close enough to the enemy. Has considerable end lag, but the strength of the shield and the unique quirks it can do with that to absorb resources and block certain interactions and things from hitting you is quite nice. And it can kind of force itself into areas if the opponent like lacks a counterplay option, you know, be it Zuka Hammer, wall, those kinds of things. So it kind of bullies some weapons really hard, but also gets bullied pretty hard back, so it's an extreme design in that sense. There's a lot of nuance, again, bad frame data, poor ink efficiency that make it really difficult to learn. But if you like a weapon that feels more like a special weapon than a main weapon sometimes because of the whole shield mechanic, this thing is definitely one of the most fun weapons in the game. The kit on the right is Inkback plus Beacon, which is definitely a more supportive kit, so it's not as good for a solo environment. But it can definitely create opportunities for you sort of snowball and enable a push that could be game-winning, so that's pretty good. The other kit is Inkmine, which helps alleviate some of your struggles in close range because Inkmine will damage, so you might not need to hit the perfectly clean one-shot to completely get someone who's just running at you, so that helps a lot. It helps you control space and just paint, so that's good. And the special on that one is Inkzuka, or Trizuka I suppose, which is really nice because Tent, especially the other Tent, kind of lacks an option to really hit people further away at long range, so having that is really good. And there is some fun synergy you can have with like launching the shield and having the Zuka inside of it. Or being a resource drain, people chase you to the corner, try and kill you, then you pop the Zuka and you trade them or kill them, that sort of thing. Really good synergy, definitely a difficult weapon mechanically, but really, really fun. I'll definitely 5-star them eventually on stream if you want to see that, so. You know, shameless plug there, if not like I really feel like I need to plug myself if you're watching this like 2.5 hours in which case thank you, I'm glad you enjoy my content. But yeah, Tent cool. Talk about T-Tech. So the thing with T-Tech and Neosplash, they kind of have some overlap being like shorter range shooters with Lethal Bomb plus Strip Strike. I'm more of a fan of T-Tech, as while it does have jumping inaccuracies, it also has more range, and it's a 3-shot. And Spot Bomb synergizes with it in terms of making the 3-shot a 2-shot combo-wise, so it can be a lot more aggressive than Splash, and it's better at fighting in that sense, even if Splash is fully accurate, the slower kill time and lack of like a quick bomb most definitely make it worse at fighting, so the trade-off is Splash is better at painting, but that's kind of about it. I'm more of a T-Tech believer for sure. But overall, extremely similar. Very, very potent and solo queue, easy to understand weapon, very, very good for beginner. No doubt about that. So now we're going to talk about another bucket. I think, yeah, it's the last bucket. We only have a few weapons left, so we're actually approaching the end of the video. That's crazy. Why is Bow up here? I definitely just forgot about Bow and like put it in at the end. Wow, I am such a Bow hater. That's crazy. So Try is the lightweight version of Bucket, and by far the easiest to play. It's the easiest to understand when you shoot with Try. It has 3 hitboxes, and by 3 hitboxes I mean it's 1 hitbox, damage-wise. But the range varies. Basically, there's like 3 little like sloshes each time you press the button. The middle one has the most range, the side ones are a little bit shorter range, but they all deal 62 damage, so 2 shots. Very wide hitbox, so you don't need to aim very much as long as you're like close enough to the opponent, so it's very, very easy mechanically in that sense, and it's going to be very strong at like lower level when you know people can't aim yet. Except unlike some other weapons like Clash and Luna that fall off super hard as you improve at the game, Try actually stays pretty good. its paint is like decent enough for what it does, and its frame data is pretty good. Its kill time is not bad. Like, it's like the king of trading in this game, basically. If you're like in range of a try and it got one slosh off, you're basically trading. You're not going to cleanly kill it. It's like the only reason you wouldn't trade it is because they like miss one of the sloshes, basically. And it's decently ink efficient. It's a lightweight. That's cool. The Tri kit over here has Toxic Mist and Inkjet. I personally don't enjoy playing it, because Mist on a weapon this short ranged is kind of not really great. Inkjet's great on it, but you can't really build for it because your paint is like mediocre. And your sub doesn't paint, so that's not great. But it's still a try at the end of the day, so it like physically has to be up here because it's very easy to play mechanically. And you'll just like trade everything, so that's great. However, the real hit comes to Tri Nouveau, because it has Fizzy Bomb and Tacticooler. So it pretty much amplifies the strengths of Tri to an extreme degree. Because Tri is really the king of short range, but it struggles at mid to long range. So Fizzy Bomb kind of helps alleviate those issues a lot, while also painting a lot and helping it build for special. And the special that you're painting for with this thing is Tacticooler, which only enhances like Tri's strengths even further, because you're gaining all this mobility on top of that. So now you're actually allowed to run at people with like giga mobility and just trade them and then respawn instantly, which is insane. So having Fizzy Bomb on this and a really good supportive special lets it play both aggressive and also just like kind of passive. It's really good at punishing people who are like trying to hold forward in their direction with the main weapon, but it's also like pretty effective at just like flushing people with Fizzy Bomb, and it's, you know, it's building a valuable special for its team in Tacticooler. And you can do crazy stuff, like you can, you know, drop zone 2 people, get a kill, be weak from the other guy, and then they walk out of your range, and then you can just abuse the quick super jump from Tacticooler to jump back to a teammate and kind of reset the scenario, but you got a kill out of it, so that's excellent. I'm pretty close to 5-starring this thing. It's pretty fun. It kind of plays a bit not even a bit, it plays a lot paint heavier than vanilla Tri, so if you like the aggressive sense of Tri, you should probably play vanilla. But if you're willing to play like a kind of mix of like patient playstyle and like Unga Bunga with cooler, the Tri Nouveau is really good. It's just a comfortable weapon because, again, mechanically it's not that difficult. Once you know your spacing, where to sit, and all that, timing on cooler, like where to throw Fizzy Bomb, it's like very, very mechanically easy. I talked about bow before, so I'm not going to talk about too much of it now. The other bow is the second kit. This is the first kit that was in the game day one. The second kit is definitely the paint-oriented kit, while this was like the quote-unquote crossfire aggro kit. It has Toxic Mist and Killer Well. And Well can help combo and force people in certain directions to make it easier to hit with the main weapon for sure. But overall, all the problems I talked about before are still there, basically, where the pace at which it plays is kind of awkward, a bit too slow for this game, it's not consistent enough. It just isn't a good solo queue weapon, it doesn't really offer you enough value, it's too difficult to play for a beginner, so I really don't recommend it if you're new. If you want to mess with bows and you're new, I would definitely recommend like the vanilla Reflux. So we have 3 more weapons to talk about, or I guess technically 4 with variants. Let's talk about the undercovers. I mentioned I was talking about Reef Slider Reflux before, that it's not too dissimilar to Undercover. I do think Undercover has a bit of an easier time trying to win, because while it may not have the kill power and one-shot capacity of Reflux, the presence of Ink Mine does a lot to help this weapon kill, and the fact that the gimmick of Undercover as a main weapon is that it can fight while its shield is up. It has the flimsiest shield of all of them, but being able to get damage on someone when they can't really shoot back at you with a lot of weapons is pretty strong. And its paint output is excellent, its mobility is excellent, its ink efficiency is fantastic. Its range is pretty poor, it's like a little bit longer than regular Brella, surprisingly. But yeah, it's definitely one of the weaker main weapons in the game, so that alone's going to weigh it down. When you play Undercover, you don't play to kill so much, you kind of just play to be a resource drain and distract and to kind of do the wiper thing and isolate fights against people that can't deal with you right now. And, you know, there are scenarios where you can sort of checkmate people by having ink mines in certain spots, and that combos with the reslider damage-wise. It has a really cheap reslider at 180 for how well it paints, so you're going to be outputting a ton of them. It's definitely my guilty pleasure weapon. I 5-starred it in X rank. A lot of people got mad at me. A lot of people see it as like bottom tier. And I got a lot of rage friend requests from doing that. So yeah, kind of funny. And Spratula Undercover was released this season. It has Screen, which I don't think is the strongest special right now. But I do think it's funny on Spratula Undercover. It's a combination of Torpedo and Screen can kind of just make it very obnoxious for your, able to fight you and your teammates. In particular, especially if you throw the Torpedo in such a way that's like inside the screen or, you know, over the screen. It can kind of just be a bit overwhelming to fight sometimes. It's really bad at fighting by itself. But with Undercover, the name of the game isn't really so much trying to solo the world, especially with Spratula Undercover. It's more so about making fights easier for your teammates by maintaining map control, painting this, painting the areas that matter. And when your teammates are going to take fights, you throw torpedoes to help assist them in that fight. And crossfire with the main weapon if you can, or at least be a distraction for them. So you're kind of a bait for them a lot of the time. So if you like being a bait for your teammates, this weapon's pretty cool. Whether that'll happen or not at low ranks, it really won't. So it's the kind of weapon that's really... It's the kind of weapon that's not good, but once you improve past the point, it becomes more fun. If that makes any sense. Especially with Vanilla Undercover, you don't really see new players pick Vanilla Undercover because it's like weak. So unless you have like some crazy understanding of it, it's gonna feel like the people you fight with this thing are probably gonna be pretty decent, because the people who bother with it are like actually like have an understanding of the game, it feels like. So it's a quirky weapon in that sense. Again, my guilty pleasure, I'm gonna 5-star Spratula Undercover eventually too, especially now that Screen has like been toned down in terms of visibility, so that's cool. So I have Charter's variant Z plus F all the way over here, because this WinCon is a lot more defined to me, because of it having triple link strike, and I think it having wall improves a lot of its matchups like significantly. It makes it more of a resource drain to kill. And in terms of solo queue, I just think this one's like a vast improvement over the other one. It is the kind of weapon where you need to have aim, obviously. It's a Charter. And you need to make your shots matter. If you're kind of just AFK painting with this, you're probably better off with pencil, to be honest. But if you can make your shots count with this thing, it'll feel really good. It's still Charter by nature, so it's not the easiest to play. But having, you know, that defined win condition is pretty nice. So, you know, definitely would recommend this over the regular Charter if you're just starting out on the game and you want to mess with Charter. This is probably the long-range Charter I'd recommend to you, honestly, looking at like the fact that I put most of the other ones down here. And for our final weapon, we're going to talk about Zinc Mini, which is, funnily enough, really close to the middle. The kit on this is Toxic Mist and Big Bubble, which is not amazing. The kit itself doesn't paint anything, which is okay, because Mini paints a ton as a main weapon. This one definitely feels like it's meant to be a resource drain, kind of similar to Junior, because it paints so much. It's got great speed, great stray speed, good ink efficiency, all of that I talked about with the Reg Mini. I think the struggle with this one is like pushing is really awkward because you don't have a tool to just like hold forward. Because you're 4-shot and your range isn't crazy. And Mist is not a hold forward kind of sub. Outside of like niche context scenarios. Like one guy's by himself and you throw a Mist at them and they're not ready. And you kind of run at them and just kill them. But Mini's not really generally a run at them type of weapon, so it's a little awkward to set up. But if you're kind of just like comfortably painting and like holding your ground with this weapon, it feels pretty good. Not bad. Definitely like heavy where it's like kind of in the middle. It's not amazing. It's not super easy. It's not bad. Not the easiest one. It's not the hardest one. It's alright. And yeah, that is covering every single weapon in Splatoon 3 as of this video. And yeah, wow, that took a while. There really aren't that many weapons on the top right now that I look at it. I kind of expected top left to be the most crowded area of the game, because I do think a lot of weapons are pretty easy to understand at a basic level. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed. That was my 2,000 subscriber special sort of thing. I wanted to do a big video at one point anyway, so having this one where I just talk for a while is good. Hope you don't mind that I'm sick. Hope it sounded okay. Hope the pacing was okay. I've had, I remember getting a comment a while ago from someone saying that they like my content a lot, but they said that I spoke too fast for them to understand. And it's not the thing where... It's not like that got to me, per se, but it does suck to kind of hear that sometimes. That's like, oh man, I really want to like your stuff, but I can't understand you. And I don't know if that's like a language barrier, or English isn't your first language, or you're just, it's the way I talk, or any of that. But I hope I'm communicating this in a way that, you know, people can understand if you're experienced at the game or new at the game. Because I think it's important to have this kind of content out there. It's the kind of game that I feel like, you know, gameplay of it exists and all that, but it's not exactly the most well documented. A lot of comp players are like younger, so they don't necessarily make content, so a lot of like topics don't really like go, you know, spoken about or whatever. But, you know, I hope this video helped you get a better understanding of weapons, or, you know, why you might be struggling with certain things, or why things feel easy with some weapons, all that kind of deal. Hope it shed some light. Hope you enjoyed. Naturally, if you haven't subbed at this point, we're at like the 3-hour mark or whatever it is. Consider that. I'd appreciate it a lot. Leave a like, comment, you know, all that fun stuff. I'm curious to know what everyone thinks about all this. And, you know, I hope this video does well and has a decent audience and reception. So, yeah, thank you for watching. Or watching all the way through, really, or even just listening. Probably listening, honestly. This is a long-form content. Most people just tend to listen on that, and this video isn't crazy on the visual stimulus, so that's cool. I'll have a shorter video next time. There's not going to be like a part 2, like 5-hour video. Don't worry about it. But yeah, hope you enjoyed. It's been Keen. I'll see you next video, and I hope to make a lot more of this year. Thank you for watching.